Well, greetings, everybody, and welcome to the last edition for me at this residence on the Breakfast Club. There is my friend Rob. How you doing?
I
Jubilees. All right, got him.
Doubles.
Yeah. How's your campaign going, Rob? How's your campaign going?
Well, Joe, Serious Mind will be in, I believe, tonight, and we have Phil a bit to talk about that. But
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, I'll hold off on that one then.
yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So just today, I see all this talk. I think it started in the New York Times where they said that Putin was bribing Taliban to target Americans, and that Trump has known about this for 3 months or whatever. And here's the thing. I didn't think the Taliban needed any incentive to target Americans because I think they've been doing that for the past 20 years, haven't they? Um, so where's the story? I mean, is it just because the money's coming from Russia? I mean, should we even be surprised by that?
well, I mean, there's a difference between having differences with the Taliban and there being like a military conflict, and a third party basically paying them off like hitmen.
Well, I agree with that. There's definitely a difference, but I mean, like, all I'm just saying is, it's kind of like getting paid to do what you're already doing. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of weird to me.
Right, I guess. Yeah, yeah, I guess. The real story there is less about what Russia was doing and what the militants in Afghanistan were doing. The real story is that Trump knew about this and didn't do anything about it.
Right.
That's
Well, so effectively letting Americans die,
right,
and that's like Benghazi 2.0.
right. I mean, yeah, worse so. I mean,
Because sorry, I was also going to say that didn't actually happen in Benghazi, but that was the accusation against Hillary and her people, wasn't it?
that she did nothing. And I mean, we have a body count here of supposedly about 20. Um,
Oh, I'll just say hi to the chat. Kira says my mic is messed up, so I'm going to turn it off and back on for a second. Oh, it didn't work. What happened?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not very good with this stuff. Let's try it again. Audio.
Well, I turned my volume down. Maybe there was some
Oh, it
weird.
might have been feedback.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think when you're talking, I'll mute myself, and that probably will help as well. But anyway, yeah. So there seems to be a lot of chat about Donald Trump committing treason here, basically, and with only a few months until the election, I don't think there's any appetite in Congress to try to go through another impeachment proceeding. And frankly, if they're going to impeach anybody right now, they should be impeaching Bill Barr.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I think if anything is going to happen to Trump, it's going to have to be his cabinet or the Republicans in Congress. So
Well, I mean, there's 34 senators up for re-election, 22 of whom are Republicans, and quite a few of those are quite vulnerable. And all it really needs for a minor majority is a swing of four, you know. But if we could get 16 of those Republicans out of the 22, that's a 60-seat Democratic House, assuming we don't lose any on the Democratic side either.
right.
You know?
I think the most efficient and most effective way to remove the man would be the 25th Amendment. Um, but I don't see that happening. So
Well, my lady says she's got sort of a theory about that. She says that Trump, doing the whole one-handed water thing and everyone clapping about it, and all of his going down the ramp like the like
like a
half
top.
yeah she thinks he's paving the way to escape at the last minute on a mentally incognitive thing, and that will get him out of court as well. If you don't have the mental capacity to go to court, then you're free. That's it. And he'll just fake it and coast. That's what she thinks.
Yeah, I see that, but some of the things, well, actually, all of those things he's been doing since he got into office. Um, he had was it Theresa May visited him at the White House, and he couldn't walk the steps without holding her hand. And that was way early on in his presidency. Having trouble drinking water has been something that's been noted several times. So I don't think there's anything as far as him like trying to set himself up for an exit. I think it's just more evidence of stuff that we've seen.
So I agree. I think it's genuine on the one level, but on another, because I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff they don't talk about with Trump and his. I mean, it gets mentioned, but not, to my mind, anywhere near as much as it should be, considering how serious it is. Hello, Michael, and hello to everybody in the audience.
Kofefe is, I think, is a halfway decent example of there's something very wrong with him. I mean. And like I said, it's been his entire presidency has been peppered with these examples of that, there's something wrong with the guy. Getting off an airplane and getting confused about what car to get in, kind of wandering around on the tarmac and that kind of stuff. The presidential limo with the flags and the seal on it, I guess, was difficult to find. I don't know.
Yeah. That was funny. Michael, how have you been?
I've been okay. I just opened a kombucha that tastes like ass, but I'm just determined to get through it.
What is it?
It's tart cherry, and it's a kombucha, and it's a health kick that Misty's on, and I got the wrong flavor. She gets all the good flavors, and I have to drink the one that I got wrong.
Well, it's got to be better than Mountain Dew, eh?
Yeah. It's been 4 years now.
4 years. That's pretty cool.
I used to be.
When I lived in California, way back in the day, Mountain Dew if it's a super hot day and I'm talking like plus 100 degrees, Mountain Dew is the only thing I could drink because it just kills your thirst instantly. But I never got into drinking it habitually or anything. My thing is Dr. Pepper. That's my sin as well. There was a long time, about 10 years ago, I think all I drank was Dr. Pepper for about a year, which can't be good, Anyway, I was going to say, at the very beginning, before we even came on the camera, Curious was in the chat. I'm sure he's still out there. Yeah, it seems to be. And he said that we had too much of an echo chamber last week and that we needed him in the audience. So, anytime you want to stir it up there in the chat, Curious, feel free. Same for everybody else. I'd like to interact with the chat a little bit more if I can this weekend. Although I have to say my keyboard doesn't work. So I'll have to do it this way.
I went off script from what the plan was. Because I know that I was wanting to be nice to Robert and get him to come back on the show.
I totally forgot to invite him as well.
Well, I figured after what I said to him this week, maybe next week, maybe wait a month. I don't know.
All right.
He in his video he said that Bubba Wallace, the race car driver, obviously wasn't born into the name like he was, Robert Wallace. And I kind of call him racist for that. And so maybe we'll wait a month,
Born into the name. I'm pretty sure he got that name from his parents.
Yeah, I actually, in my video, I went to the Wikipedia page and his father, Senior, has the name Wallace.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
I mean, people change their names and do all kinds of weird shit. I know people I myself have changed my name for that matter back in the day, but I changed my name back to the name I was born with from the name that I had. So yeah, because I had my stepdad's last name for quite a long time.
And he went as far as to say it was obvious, just look, that he wasn't born into the name. And I was like, Bubba Wallace isn't like the midnight black, dark person that you would say it's obvious about. He could actually be genetically related to Robert Wallace.
Well, I mean, certainly no shortage of Wallaces. That's a pretty popular last name.
Yeah, I was actually looking for maybe there was a General Wallace that would have a statue pulled down. There was a General Lewis Wallace who has a statue in Indiana, but he was a Union general. But that doesn't seem to matter these days because there's other reasons why someone could have their statue pulled down. But then there was a General Cornwallis, which it's got a Wallace in it. And I was like, well, maybe that counts.
I don't know. What do you guys think about all these statues coming down? Because we talked a little bit about it last week with the George Washington one coming down. But I mean, it seems to have taken on a life of its own. The habit of taking statues down.
Yeah, here in Denver, they pulled down the statue of a Union general, and it was like, why? What did he do?
Are they gonna blow up Washington and Jefferson on Mount Rushmore?
Well, if they make a good documentary behind the scenes leading up to it, I'll forgive them. As long as there's like a lot of good jokes and puns in the documentary, I'll be like, well, this was a beautiful creation, a work of art, and I'll forgive it, because sometimes in order to create you have to destroy. But
fair enough. Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't think anything has to be like totally sacred or anything like that when it comes to monuments. On the one hand, but I just worry. I don't know. I'm all for anything racist coming down. That's for damn sure. But where those lines are drawn isn't really up to me.
Mount Rushmore in particular, though, is an interesting case because its legal status is questionable. Actually, no, it's not questionable. It's legally not American land. It's not our land legally.
Right.
So, if the Lakota want to blow it up, it's their mountain. If that's what they want to do. So, by U.S. treaty, that land that Mount Rushmore is on doesn't belong to us.
I didn't know that.
The entire project was illegal to begin with. So.
Wow, I really didn't know that. I knew that there was like it was sacred ground or whatever, and it was considered an affront to the native to put it there, but I didn't realize it was like reservation land.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why it's an affront to them. I mean, it's their land, by U.S. treaty, a treaty that we've never lived by, that we never honored.
I don't know if you've ever seen the graphic, but there's a graphic of the U.S., the 48 states, where the reservation shrinks as time goes on, like a time lapse, thing, and there's like almost nothing left. Whereas and that's because resources, they find oil under the ground, so they're like, oh, now we have to kick you off this land and kick you on land that has nothing to do with how you've been living in your culture, like taking desert Indians and put them in the forests and shit like that, for example.
Right.
When I drove through the Pine Ridge Reservation, I was told that all of the cattle that I saw didn't belong to the people that lived around the area, because a lot of the people, when they got the rights to their land, they sold it to white people. And so all the cows you see don't actually belong to the people who live in that area. And as soon as they were able to make a quick buck by selling their land, some of them got taken advantage of. And it's horrible. The little bit of land they do have that's good grazing land, owned by white people.
Right. Not surprising, considering that's the whole history, isn't it? The domination and whatever. I'm having a hard time with all this reckoning with history insofar as, I mean, it is what it is, and I think we need to look it in the face. And you don't have to be, the dark history, like certain things that happen in American history where people have been ethnically cleansed, like Chinese people in Truckee back in the 19th century, or what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 20s. that kind of thing. There's some pretty dark stuff and Wounded Knee, my goodness, and I think we need to dismantle it mainly by stop saying America's the greatest country ever, and by stop saying that we're superior to everybody else when our history is just as dark as any country I can think of in the modern world. Anyway.
So I saw Rob's eyes open up when I said what Robert said, and there was something else that I learned this week. I know a lot of people already knew this, but it blew me away. So Bubba Wallace drives a car in NASCAR that says #Black Lives Matter, right? There is another car that has a hashtag printed in very much the same way, but on the same spot on the car. Also has a black base to it, and it's the #BackTheBlue car. It has a thin blue line across the side, and it has that American flag with the blue line on it, and everything else is black and white on the hood of the car. Like the two cars that have hashtags on the side like that are the Black Lives Matter and the #BackTheBlue.
Wow.
And they look so similar, the two cars, that it cannot be like just coincidence that those two cars look similar.
Right.
And when I saw that #BackTheBlue car, I felt worse about that than if they had the General Lee in NASCAR with a Confederate flag, because I'm like, that's like the exact opposite message.
Yeah, actually, for sure. Do you guys remember way back? It must have been a year and a half ago or so, when Trump visited a school, and they had like a ditto of an American flag, and the kids were supposed to color the flag in, and Trump was coloring the flag in, and he colored one of the stripes blue. And that was before I was cognizant of the police flag that you're talking about. May or may not even really been as common knowledge back then. I don't know, because I certainly never heard of that police flag when Trump did that. And I remarked on the Breakfast Club at the time, and I'm like, what the fuck is he up to? Because you can't grow up in America and think the flag has any blue stripes, because you're surrounded by that flag everywhere you go. People have it on their fucking houses. You know what I mean? And if you're president of the United States, you're supposed to, you're especially surrounded by it. It's in every goddamn room of the White House, right? So the stripes aren't blue. I did my head in, I'm like, what is he doing with that blue stripe? Now I know it's a signal.
Yeah, the NASCAR car doesn't say #Blue Lives Matter, but that was a trending hashtag for like the whole past year.
Sure.
Right? The hashtag is #BackTheBlue, which doesn't look like a direct parallel. But when you look at the two cars, both having a black base, both having a hashtag in the same place where no other car has a hashtag message like that,
yeah,
it's just stunningly obvious.
Well, yeah. The #BackTheBlue is obviously a response to his All Lives Matter, which is funny because Blue Lives Matter is a direct response to Black Lives Matter. And I mean, and the police flag, with the blue line, the whole Blue Lives Matter concept is at its base racist. At its base, the entire concept is a racist concept because it's in response to Black Lives Matter, and because cops somehow think their uniforms are blue, that makes them blue people.
Yeah.
Like there's no such thing as a blue life. There's no such thing. Except for
means something else in the UK though.
Violet, what's her name? Violet Beauregard from Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
she's the only one.
Yeah. Oh, Badger in here. Badger says, "Isn't that flag desecration in Trump world for changing the flag?" That's a good point. And I don't know if you guys remember, but when the George Floyd protests first kicked off, I can't remember if it was Cleveland or if it was Cincinnati, but one of those police departments, they hoisted the blue line flag up on the main. They took down the regular American flag and hoisted that blue one up, or the one with the blue stripe up. And I'm pretty sure that's illegal. you know, to replace the American flag on a pole or put a different flag above the American flag. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that. I think the only flags that are allowed to fly above the American flag are church flags, if memory serves me right.
I don't even
Green,
think they're allowed to fly above. They are allowed to fly beside at the same level.
Ah,
Green Machine, you'd have to define what an actual flag is. Um, there are no specifications that a flag has to be made of any particular material to be considered a flag. So an image of the flag is still the flag. So
thus, make a flag on a piece of paper, it's still a flag.
yeah, it's still a flag. So
You know, I also noticed, since we're speaking about the flag for a moment, that there's another new push by Trump and his people to try to get Congress to pass a law saying you can't burn the flag. And the Supreme Court has already ruled on this twice, including when Scalia was the Supreme Court Chief Justice, and he said absolutely protected free speech, burning a flag, I would find it really hard to burn a flag personally, because I've been indoctrinated properly, right? But I quite happily hang one upside down and fly it like that.
yeah, I mean, burning the flag should be protected speech. But if you're just going to like flippantly burn the flag, I think then you're abusing that right. The idea is to make a statement, and your statement, in my opinion, better be pretty damn important.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't like wear a mask, or if you can't go into public without a mask, and you burn a flag, you're a special kind of piece of shit. If you don't like a decision of the Supreme Court, even if it doesn't affect you at all, and you burn a flag, you're a special kind of stupid.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, absolutely, free speech, burning flags protected, and it should be. But it's not the kind of thing you should like just do flippantly or squander. I mean, it makes,
Right.
and that's when it should be used.
But what I really find amazing is that they're talking about trying to make legislation for it when we already know the Supreme Court said no twice. They said it like 1988 and in the early 2000s as well. So I thought that the issue frankly, I thought those kinds of issues were settled after one Supreme Court decision, but they've done it twice now. So I think that's pretty bulletproof, wouldn't it be?
Nothing is bulletproof. Everything
is not.
Everything is up for grabs. Every bit that we fight for can be reversed by the next president. That's what I've learned. And I've learned that things like the sitting president gets to make the nominations for the Supreme Court. Even that can be thrown out the window because they can just say, you know what, we're just going to delay it till our president is in. And then all of a sudden, everyone accepts it.
Well, I can't believe that they let that happen back in 2011 or whatever, 2012. No, 2016, sorry, 2015, 16, wasn't it? Because there's no constitutional precedent for it, for one thing, and it's clearly a dereliction of duty. When you look at what the Constitution actually says about the confirmation of the judges, you're not supposed to be giving the Senate the power to say no. You're just giving the Senate the power to go, okay, this guy has the qualifications to be a judge, so therefore, yes. You're not supposed to be looking into their everything. You're saying, are they qualified? Do they have the relevant experience to be a Supreme Court justice?
Rob, can you tell us how you felt when two Supreme Court justices voted your way recently that was unexpected?
That was wild. No, it felt good. It felt good. It was more that it was a repudiation of Trump than anything, but
Yeah, I was very surprised to see that a vote went in favor of protecting LGBTQ people. Where the justices are stacked to the conservative side. I was like, wow, that happened. They can't trust that the judges that they appoint will always vote their way. Sometimes they actually do their job and just look at the law and say, no, it's actually written that way.
Well, I don't know if it's ever been that way, but I was certainly raised to believe that it was that way. I was raised to believe that the Supreme Court was almost never wrong, But as I was an older adult from the 80s onwards, I could see quite easily that the Supreme Court does make a few boo-boos.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Speak of the devil.
Hey, Joe. There's yeah, the Supreme Court being wrong. Okay, so even if you don't agree, traditionally don't agree with a Supreme Court decision, Damon, please. Even if you don't agree with a Supreme Court decision, you can often find the legal reasoning. You can find the legal, backing for the decision that they've made. That has kind of, on some instances, kind of vanished. What the difference between a conservative and a liberal judge was less about where they stood politically, but more about how they read the law, as far as a strict reading of the Constitution or a more interpretive reading of the Constitution. And that's typically what separated conservative and liberal. That's not really the case anymore. The reason why Gorsuch decided the way he did upset a lot of conservatives was because he read the law in a conservative way. He read it as it was written. And as it was written, it favored the left as it was written. So even though he sided with the left, it was a conservative reading of the law. And I think then we should be a lot more careful with how we craft legislation so that even a conservative reading will give you a left result.
Right. And that's the reason why every once in a while over time, Scalia was still alive, as much as he was very conservative. And when there was the opportunity to kind of shove his religion involved there, he would. But I mean, one of my stepsons is a lawyer, and he said that, he would surprise the average rank and file, but he wouldn't surprise lawyers because they were like, oh yeah, of course, based on that kind of approach, like you just described, Rob, that he would, Scalia would sometimes come down that, well, certain things can't be, are inviolable, and so therefore he would, find a way that would make the liberals happy. So, but yes, and I'm still fuming about that person.
I figured you would be. You saw that she responded with "Okay, Joe."
Yeah.
An hour had gone by. She had to get the last word in.
Right. So that's the thing. So what I did was I responded again. I said, "Oh, so someone who's condescending, and all this," and I also said, and someone who clearly insists on having the last word. Once again, more irony about the person who says that they're willing to die on the hill of boosting black and brown voices. Well, and that to what Brian just posted there, yes and no, because part of the problem is that when you write these things, it's kind of like when you read an ancient document. The meaning and understanding of even basic language changes over time. And, so a lot of times, like how people try to be, they say they're strict constructionists and they kind of just read what's there. But what it means today and what it means then would still be interpreted differently simply by the fact that the language has changed. And so it's virtually impossible to really truly be a strict constructionist because our just basic understanding of the words is the way it used to be.
Yeah, that's why it drives me crazy when people talk about or debate whether or not the Constitution is a living document. Of course, it's a living document. The language has changed.
Right.
Yeah, and it has to be a living document anyway. You can't write something for the 18th century and expect those values to persist throughout cultural changes, even if culture hasn't changed because of technology like it has. and was more or less static as it was, say, from the 17th to the 19th century in terms of technological advancement. You still, the values will change, generations change.
And you're 100% correct, but you don't even have to go that deep into it. The language has changed.
Sure.
And how we relate to the language has changed. So if you're reading something and say, well, this is what it means, well, that doesn't mean that's what it meant then.
Right.
So
Well,
our understanding has to change.
one of my favorite examples of that is, it's one of my favorite words. I always like finding the etymology of different words and phrases. And my favorite one is the word actual. But and I discovered this because of German, actually. I was in a computer simulation league, baseball league, and the guy who was in charge, you would play the games, you send your results in, and then somebody would send out the combined, the aggregated results. Whoever's got the background noise, if you could mute when you're not speaking, because basically what he kept referring to the results disc as the actual disc, and I was just like, actual disc, what, as opposed to the virtual disc or the fake disc? And so he said, well, you have this word in English, actual. And I said, well, yeah, but I don't think it means the same thing in English as it does in German. So I looked it up. In German, the word actual means current or recent. In English, it doesn't, but it used to.
Right.
So it was a false cognate that was an actual cognate at one time. So what happened is, way back, before, quick communications, actual, current, if you got recent news, it was more likely to be accurate, because just like a game of telephone, over time, retellings, stories get distorted and reinterpreted, and people put their own spin on it. So if you got the actual news, the recent news, it was more likely to be the factual and current and accurate news. So the word actual took on the meaning of accurate and factual as opposed to current, because in their mind, way back, that was effectively the same thing, but it doesn't mean that anymore.
Yeah, that's a good example of how language changes. And just taking English versus American English is a good example. I mean, the spellings of words have been changed for America, for example, and certainly a lot of connotations of, it's all culturally based. Even though it's obviously the same words we're using, they definitely have different meanings here than they do there.
Yeah.
So I want to backtrack a little bit, if it's okay, to what Joe and I were talking about when he first came on. Paul, you asked about how my campaign was going.
Yeah.
Well, that was what that little side conversation was about. I have my campaign page up. Rob for Freeholder is up on Facebook. And since I began my campaign, another Democrat has thrown his hat into the ring. Now, backstory to this. About a year ago, the Democratic Party county chair moved out of the county, so she gave up her position, and we had a new chair. The new chair was this young woman who is completely out of her fucking mind. This girl, she's nuts. She's just off the rails, and there are a lot of problems with her and other county chairs in the state. There were problems with her, with the governor. There was problems with her, with all kinds of stuff, and it caused a rift in the county party. Some of the members of the committee sent her on a petition to have her removed. So a year before she was up for re-election, we ended up having a reorganization. She was voted out. She did not go quietly. So she decided whoever was going to do anything on the county level, that she would find a way to stand against it. So when I announced that I was running, she found a candidate who's a local celebrity, a guy who was toying with going into politics. This guy's a rapper. So she got this black guy to run against me. He has thousands of followers online because of his music, his music career. So he's kind of known. He's not like a big star, but kind of locally,
Sure.
He's a personality. and he's also an activist. So now this guy's running against me for the Democratic nomination, which is all fine and good. I have no problem with that. I mean, that's the whole point of a primary, is to, make those decisions. Well, some person, this young woman who is a friend of the former county chair and a supporter of this guy that's running against me, decided to leave this ridiculous comment on my campaign page, saying that I should drop out of the race because there's a black guy running against me. And by me running, I'm basically racist because I'm squashing black voices.
And then,
and then,
so first Peach responded and said, "That's ridiculous, and stop using us as your pawns for your own, gain. We don't like being tokens." And then I piped up and supported what Peach said. And then this individual had the temerity to basically be dismissive to both Peach and myself. And so at that point, I messaged Rob and I'm like, "Oh, she done fucked up," because and of course, as you might expect, I was not going to take that lightly. So and then somebody else had responded and basically said, "Hey, do you realize you're basically telling the black people in here in this conversation to shut the hell up?" And then this person ignored what he'd said and basically said, "Well, basically trying to puff herself up and maybe you don't understand what black people go through, but I do, and I'm prepared to die on this hill to amplify black voices." And I'm like, for someone who claims you're going to die on the hill of amplifying black voices, it sounds like you're already dead on that hill, and it's a self-inflicted wound. I said that when the person supposedly amplifying black voices is basically pushing the black people aside, and because what she said to me, her initial response to me was, "Do you even know what a freeholder is?" How fucking condescending is that? So of course that I was already pissed off, and then that just shot me to the fucking moon. So yeah, you're so in favor of helping black people that you your first comment to a black, and again, my initial comment was not hostile. I was just kind of supporting what Pete said, and you asked me if I know what a fucking freeholder is. Really? Shit's on.
Like, I sent Joe the link to the thread as a check this out kind of thing, figuring we'll talk about it on the show here tonight. Did not expect a back and forth. And here I am, it's my campaign page. I can't say a word because I'm the white guy that's running for the office. So I can't say nothing. So I got like my hands are tied behind my back while this young white girl is white-splaining racism to two black people on my campaign page in defense of the black candidate that she supports.
Yeah.
It's just like, what the fucking fresh hell is this?
So then she since then, and then her last two responses to me was like, "Okay, Joe," like all this condescending, and I was just like, so the last one I finally said, "Oh, so not only are you ignorant and arrogant, but you're somebody who has to get the last word." Well, good luck with that. Because that's the shit, and that's the thing. Funny because I was just talking to someone, like we were just talking about that the other day. It's like that's the one thing that does drive me to distraction on the left, is that generally speaking, the left gets the big issues right, but and it happens not just with race, but also with sexism too. Sometimes leftist men will do this of like so somebody's getting on a woman's case and it's step aside, I'll save you, and it's just like it's paternalistic, it's very condescending. It's not intentionally to be condescending, but it is basically you're it's kind of saviorism and
like I said, I mean, I couldn't even say anything. So like I had all the stuff that I wanted to say. It was just like I wanted to say, you're right. I'm not black. I don't know the black struggle, but I am queer. And while not the same struggle, there are a lot of parallels. And I can draw on that. But yeah, no, I'm being advised by because I have an intern. The guy that you had mentioned, Joe, that was in the thread. He's my intern.
Yeah.
So I have an intern. He said, no. Say, and then I was also going to say, although like as far as black issues and racial issues, they might not affect me directly, but it affects my home.
Right.
And Peach was like, you can't say that because that's too close to saying I have a black friend.
Right.
So it's like I said, so here I am, the white guy that is like at my campaign page, and I can't
Can you
say
guys hear me?
damn.
Hey, how's it going, Amy? The thing well, the thing that got me though, what I wanted to say to her when she's saying, well, you're the white guy, you don't understand, and I was going to be like, well, neither do you. You're a white person. So you're a white person telling another white person that they don't know what black people go through, and I'm like, yeah, you don't either. So shut the hell up.
I don't know. Just wanted to say hello, Sister Danger. It's very nice to see you back. How are you? How have you been?
Well, overall, I've been great, and I really pardon that I'm late, and I'm very upset at the moment. Today has been a very hard day. So
Sorry.
I've been crying, and I'm sorry that I probably look terrible, but I said I would be here, and so here I am.
Aw. Wow, what a trooper. Thank you very much. If it's any consolation, I had a crap day as well. So, I feel you. Yeah, I feel you. So, yeah, you've just walked in on the conversation. Jubilees there, or Jubilees, Rob, in the middle there, is running for office in New Jersey for a local position called the freeholder.
Oh, wow. What is that?
It's a council, like a county council position or something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah,
Or
county
whatever.
legislature, basically.
Yeah. And then after there's a bit of local drama with a personality conflict, shall we put it that way? And so someone decided to put up another candidate who happens to be black. And then Rob was told to get out of the race to make way. And then Serious Mind here and others who we've been chatting about who are also black are going, hey, man, that's not how we should approach these issues. So that's what you walked into. Okay. Just so you're up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually, for those of you who know me personally, I posted, about it on Facebook, and I also posted a link to the thread for anybody who wants to see it.
I believe that my intern is going to take that down, take down that entire thread at some point tonight. We wanted to leave it up so people can see it, but at the same time, we didn't want to leave it for the duration because we didn't want it to take away from anything. I honestly, and yes, my view is biased, but I think that the fact that I didn't say anything, that I was a good candidate and kept my mouth shut as badly. I mean, you guys know me. Sister Danger doesn't really know me, but everybody else here, you know me. It was hard for me to sit that out. I mean, I sat at my computer like gripping the keyboard, like, oh my God, I want to scream at this person. But I behaved. And I think everyone else that commented in the thread, I think they all handled themselves well. I mean, like Joe had said in the thing, on his post on Facebook, I think it was about the white girl who was white-splaining racism to black people was just the entire thing was ridiculous.
That was special.
So I have a question. Has anybody listened to the rap music of this new opponent that threw his hat in the ring?
I didn't know. Have you?
I didn't catch what you said. Have I listened to what?
The rap music of the candidate that's running against me. Yeah, no. Have you, Michael? Because I know you're very fast with looking stuff up.
I haven't looked it up yet, but I'm just saying there are certain artists that just because of the themes of their music, I wouldn't figure that they would ever be fit for being a candidate. Even if it was escapism. I don't see any like West Coast gangster rappers running for Congress.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's a gangster rapper though.
Is he a Christian rapper?
I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that.
I think I'd rather have a gangster rapper. At least they're honest.
The guy has, like I said, he has a bit of a following. especially amongst the younger kids in the area. He was out in LA for a while. Had an actual record deal and everything else. Apparently, he's suing whoever it was, his label, I guess. And he had to come back to Jersey. And since he's been here, he's been doing a lot of organizing of Black Lives Matter rallies, which is awesome, which is great, you know. And it was during one of these rallies that somebody had said, "Hey, man, why don't you run for freeholder?" And I was actually at that rally. I was already a candidate, and I'm like, and everybody. I was at this table of doing voter registration, and everybody at the table looked at me with their jaws wide open. And the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm running for freeholder," and I was like, "Dude, what the fuck? What the fuck? You know, the candidate is already here, you know." But yeah, I mean, I actually met with the guy yesterday, sat down with him, and we discussed the race and what he wanted to get out of it. And he didn't have a plan for what he wanted. He just wanted to run, and he wants to win. Doesn't say why. He talks about a lot of racial issues, which is fine, but the county is like 0.01% non-white. So
Seriously?
it's very white, very, very, very white.
It is white.
Very, very, very white. So I mean, it's just like, yeah, I support what you support, dude, but that's not something to run on here. You know, I mean, that's not going to help.
Doesn't have any cash.
You know, and especially, I mean, you can't run on that as your platform when you have no support. And like one of the things I said to him is because we talked about whether or not he should step aside. This was just yesterday, and I said, put it this way. Hello. Put it this way. You are an activist. If you become freeholder, you can no longer be an activist. It doesn't work that way. You know, the system is designed to tamp down activism from within. You can't be an activist and a legislator at the same time. It's just not going to happen. So you might have all these ideas about what you want to see happen, and that you're going to, like, you know, storm the county building. But once you get there, you know, you have to play by the rules, and they will rein you in. I said, I'm not an activist. But what I would need behind me is activists holding me up so I can get the job done that you need done.
Right.
I said, if you become freeholder, you'll have nobody, because all of your activist support is yourself, and it'll be gone. You'll no longer have that wave behind you, because you are the wave.
Right.
And he seemed to understand that. But then here we are today. He's just like, he's still like, yes, I'm running. It's just like, okay, dude, I put my hand out in partnership.
I mean, democracy depends on competition to some degree anyway. You know what I mean? I mean, I always think competition is a healthy thing. I also understand your frustration, though. I mean, especially if there doesn't seem to have any sort of overarching goal or idea about policy agenda, that kind of thing.
To be honest, neither one of us has a chance of winning. Neither one of us has a chance. And then we don't have a snowball's chance in hell.
Why
This
not?
is Trump country. This is Trump country. Democrats haven't held office in this county for 20 years.
Wow.
Just neither one of us can win.
I'm not even sure that's actually a deterrent anymore. I mean, come on. When sections of the GOP are like, hey, actually, we don't support Trump. I mean, like, that's but it's happening.
This isn't Republican country. This is Trump country. These people here they love Trump no matter what he does.
Yeah, and the thing too, there's a huge difference, particularly in New Jersey, between how Republicans are in local politics versus how they are in national politics. You know, because in part because it's different issues. I mean, basically, all the big national issues we talk about when we talk about, you know, Congress and the Supreme Court and the president, most of those are not issues on the local level. They're just not. You're trying to accomplish a different thing, because you're not getting into, abortion rights and social rights and all this kind of stuff. It's usually like the everyday function of how things work. How we're going to get the trash, what's the tax rate going to be, that kind of stuff is very practical. And that's why I keep trying to. Again, I guess I generally try to be realistic and not quixotic, but I still have this ridiculous thought in my head that I can get through to Kate and at least get her to understand what you were just saying a minute ago, Rob. That it sounds great. We're going to storm the Bastille and do X, Y, and Z, but the system is literally and not in a sinister way, but the function of government is designed in a way that change has to be slow because you need stability. And so, you can't just go ahead and remake everything every week. You can't, because every time there would be a new administration and everything changes, that's just not, you wouldn't be able to function as a country or as a state or county or town or anything. So
I agree that. Sorry, Michael. I just want to say real quick. I agree that that's it's been structured to function deliberately slowly, both on the local and national level. But I kind of also disagree in the sense that you can't have swinging sudden change if the moment calls for it. Like could have sorted this pandemic out a lot better 10 weeks ago than they did. And it would have made a huge difference in everyone's life, including the survivability for a lot of people,
Yeah.
And that's one example.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, you're right. For exigent circumstances, that's true. And even there, when it has to happen, it's still disruptive. I think the other thing too is anytime we're going to have any big societal change, like me, as much as I tend to be more, I'm on the left, but I'm not as left as the rest of the panel here. For the most part, but the thing is that like I'm all for a single payer healthcare system, but the point I was trying to make the case is yes, we do need it right away, but we also have to take it in stages, because if we do it wrong, we can actually cause more harm. Believe it or not, it's possible to cause more harm than where we are currently. So things take time, and that's frustrating because especially if someone's an activist, they just want. When do we want? What do we want? Whatever. When do we want it now? And
when do we want time travel? When do we want it? It doesn't matter.
Hooray for the geek reference! So if you know that the incumbent or whoever you're up against is really deeply seated and unlikely to be dislodged by you or anyone. What is your actual purpose in running, since 99.4 ivory % sure know that you're not going to get the seat?
Shift the Overton window. Hang on a second. Sorry, my munchkin was talking. To shift the Overton window, to make the conversation about things that people can relate to, kind of sets the stage for the next cycle or for the next either town position or, just kind of bring issues to the forefront that aren't being talked about just because of the demographics of the county.
Right.
That's why I think it's important that this guy, his name is Scott, why he and I aren't like battling each other head to head in the primary, that the sooner we can get a unified front, the better, because the last thing that the county needs is what appears to be a fractured Democratic Party.
Right.
And that's exactly what we have, is a fractured Democrat Party.
Can I speak to that fracture? Did you file a petition to get on the primary ballot?
No, it's write-in.
So everybody who wants to be a freeholder has to do write-in?
No, you could file a petition, but you have to be in by a certain time. I didn't decide to run until after.
So now you're trying to run a campaign based on scoring write-in votes.
Right, on the primary. So all I need is 100. That's all I need. And I'm pretty sure I've got that. So I'll be on the ballot. But odds are he also got 100. It's a pretty low bar to get. So the two of us will be on the ballot, and it'll end up splitting the vote for the left.
So two Democrats.
It's going to guarantee that the incumbent's going to win anyway. So.
2 Democrats versus 1 Republican on the ballot is what's going to happen.
Yep.
Okay.
Like I said, that's why I was really trying to get this guy to, to step aside. But now people are calling for me to step aside because I'm white.
Well, and the thing is about moving the window. I mean, that's it's really important. Like I think about like the first major, at least for a long time, a third party candidate was Ross Perot. Those of you who remember him, and even though ultimately he had no chance of winning, and although he shot himself in the foot by quitting and then getting back in, but still he changed the conversation. So no one was really, there wasn't an argument between, the Democrats and Republicans over NAFTA. Ross Perot made it an issue.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. That was going to be my next example,
The Overton window. When it gets too far to either side, the other side needs to drag the window. I mean, because for people who don't know what the Overton window is, it's basically what's considered to be the center. And right now, America doesn't have a left. The Overton window is so far to the right that we don't have a left wing in this country. Even the Democrats are right wing. So the Overton window needs to be dragged to the left. And in some communities, like mine, it's really, really, really far to the right. So,
yeah, I mean, basically where you live, Rob, the moderates are the ones who are against Nazis.
yeah. I mean, typical right.
And I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, the typical right winger here believes that Bill Gates wants to indoctrinate everybody with vaccines filled with microchips so they can be controlled by 5G towers. And I am not being hyperbolic. That's actually something. It's actually something that people here believe. They say it at town hall meetings. They talk about it in coffee shops. They really, really, really believe. Alex Jones is considered a hero here.
Are you kidding me?
I kid you not. And that's the thing that's mind blowing, because we're not talking about rural Alabama. We're talking about rural New Jersey. And you don't have to go far from where Rob lives to like get to sanity, but it's New Jersey that's like that.
I mean, it might be a crazy notion. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Goth.
No, you don't. You go ahead.
It might be a crazy notion, but if the true purpose is to move the Overton window, then it really shouldn't matter. Not at this point. Who is to win the seat that is on your side? What really should be the concern is either trying to secure that by hook or by crook, and then once it is had, to go from there. And if it means the securing of that, or even the notable movement of it such that it is now part of the public conversation realistically, then that would indicate to me that by whatever means you accomplish this, and if those means mean that because his side will not budge due to, say, solidarity with their minority status, that you budge your side, that you put your side behind that. Because ultimately, if it is as you're saying, it will play out on its own and become out of the way. So
I agree. As one of the things I said when I met with him yesterday, because he was unyielding as far as whether or not he would drop out. I said, well, in the primary, the Democratic nominee is going to be based on who gets the most votes. Since he and I are both going to get enough to get on the ballot, the official Democratic Party nominee is going to be whoever has the highest votes. And I said, if you have the highest vote count, then I'm on your team. I'm on Team Scott. And I will wave your flag up and down the street. And I said, and I hope that if it's the other way around, I can count on your support too. And he didn't offer it.
Yeah.
And I left that meeting thinking, holy shit, this guy, he's not in it for the party. He's in it for him. He wants the spotlight.
Well, I mean, that could be true, but I think that also, given the current climate, it could be a number of other things that are in play, because I suspect that coming from the perspective that and the demographic that he's coming from, it is it is quite a challenge to swallow the pill of toe the party line, but let a white man be up front.
Oh,
And
yeah.
regardless of whether or not that is his personal opinion, this is very much
I think
a social feel right now. And so it may not be
I
something
agree.
that he even thinks, like even him doing that would be enough for his contingent to just be like, you know what, screw you. You just sucked up to the Oh Boys Network, and we're out, and we're not supporting you either. And this is kind of why I say that ultimately I think that you are the one that has more ability and maneuverability than he does to pull all of you and your constituency behind him than he does to put something behind you. Because I think that him doing that would actually cause him to lose face and followers much more than it would with you. Because right now there's a zeitgeist to step aside, to have the white person step aside. So that gives you the ability to do it and be in the strong for doing it, right? So does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
so I get what you're saying, and I don't think you're wrong per se, but I think the problem is that I've seen that elsewhere within Democratic politics in the last 5 years, and unfortunately, it's kind of a destructive attitude that we had, and this is part of our circular firing squad. Is like, well, because again, ultimately, it's going to come down to, and like Rob said, Rob's prepared to get behind the guy if the other guy is the one who gets the vote. But if the other side, if that guy's side are not willing to do the opposite, then there is no unity, and then basically it means that the my way or my highway thing. It just doesn't work, and it's been a loser for 40 years, and that's one of the differences that Republicans are better at. Even look, at least I said this in the past. Lots of like certainly lots of mainstream Republicans despise Trump, always did, but once he was the guy, he was their guy. And they just stepped aside and said, "Okay, fine. We lost. You won, and we're all behind you." And that's why they win. And our side, unfortunately, it's the danger of that's the downside of diversity is that diversity is a strong thing and everything, but the problem is that we end up breaking up in our little groups, and then we have and then we get very kind of too insulated into our own and not looking at the big picture. And that's why I've had so many fights with people again on the left that just like, well, I'll vote for this candidate, but if the other candidate wins, fuck it, I'm going to stay home. I'm like, well, but then that's why we lose. That's why we lose all the time.
yeah. I mean, I everything you said, Sister Danger. Yeah, I get you. And yes, I would have more flexibility and more maneuverability. I could rally more people around him than he could around me. Absolutely, agreed. I would be willing to give him more of the benefit of the doubt if he wasn't an entertainer. And I admit completely that the fact that he's an entertainer colors my view of his motivations. The fact that he has spoken on zero policies, the fact that he's addressed absolutely nothing about anything about the office or about the incumbent or about the election, and he has posted absolutely nothing about telling people to vote. And the fact
What
that
you're,
he wants
sorry,
to.
what you're saying without saying it is a PR stunt.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean, and I could be wrong. But it looks like, yes, it looks like it's PR. It looks like he's looking for likes on Instagram. It looks like today there was when my campaign reached out to him today about this girl making these ridiculous comments. He didn't disown them, but he also said, "Well, I'm busy at a Black Lives Matter rally, so I can't really deal with this now." It's like, dude, you're a candidate for an office. You can't. You're not an activist anymore. You're a candidate for an office. If you're not going to take it seriously, then step away.
But see, that's exactly my point. That the indication is that there is not there's not the um, longevity in it for the long haul, not from his side, not the endurance for the long haul, and therefore the what you are doing by putting your weight behind him is, in the most immediate sense, you are securing for the party overall now a larger demographic, and he will, on his own, either fall into a role that is more befitting of what he actually wants to do, right? Or he will simply fall by the wayside because there isn't anything to actually be brought there. So absorb what you can while you can, and let him do his own thing, because it isn't going to last. It is going to be temporary, and you will be the person who has stayed in that.
I
And
see
then,
what your point is, and they're thereby shifting the window.
correct, shifting the
It's
window,
your
but also being, it will leave it ultimately with you and people who are actually in this to be in it, as opposed to, being in it because people want to do all kinds of things right now, right? And they don't realize what is involved actually in that. So, and so eventually it will not be long before he does this thing and realizes that it comes with many unforeseen aspects that probably, if my experience in dealing with entertainer type people is probably not something that they want to be beleaguered with. And
It was
so
funny. It's the executive director of the county Democratic committee was at this meeting with him yesterday. And while we were talking, I said to him, I said, either one of us is going to lose. And he said, yeah. I said, all right. I said, so that being the case, how about at the next cycle, when there's 2 seats open, we run as a team, as a ticket? And he said, oh, I'm not even thinking 2 weeks out. I can't think about next year.
right. So I mean, this is chess, and your object is to seize control of the middle. You know, like that's what's happening right now. So like that might mean that you have to make this small sacrifice over, sacrifice a pawn over here, but you're going to win a piece in the end, right? So, but at least that's what it seems like could happen, because I can't imagine any way right now, in the climate that there is, for you to be
I just,
successful by
I just,
making it a battle. Does that make sense?
oh, absolutely. And I wanted to avoid a battle with him. And I just had a thought. It's probably a terrible thought. And I don't normally voice thoughts that I have on this, but yes, I do. Who am I kidding? I always voice.
Yeah. You don't hold back. Who you could.
But the thing is in actuality, if I were to step away and throw my support behind him, then actually next cycle, if I wanted to run, that actually benefits me politically, because I was the guy who stepped aside for the black candidate.
No, and I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, in the long game, this only works out positively for you. And I don't mean this to sound like, I feel like I sound like super calculating right now. like super, I'm just like, to hell with actual people. This is how you manipulate it all, right? But but
no,
you
it does
feel
have,
like a terrible person.
right.
But
It
at
has
the
the
same
knock-on
time, like,
benefit. It has the knock-on benefit of doing that, though.
Well, and actually, I would go one step further. I would say, in order to be to be victorious, and in order to make change, you have to win. You can't govern unless you win. So you have to be calculating. And again, I think that's been the bane of the left, is the inability to have a long-term plan. We have long-term goals and no long-term plan.
Plans. Yeah.
The Republicans have no long-term goals, but they have long-term plans.
Now, the person running Scott Paul's campaign is a 20-year-old recent high school graduate. She is an outspoken queer activist. She's a lesbian. She started our county's pride organization a few years ago. She started the first Gay Straight Alliance in the town I live in our school. She's 20 years old and she's running a political campaign, and she's fierce. She's fierce. The executive director of the county party is 22. He went to school with her. These are kids. These are kids. When I was 22, I was drunk.
Well, and I'll tell you what, that bodes well. That bodes well for the future.
It does. It really does. These kids are impressive as hell, and so impressive. But this 22-year-old kid, the executive director of the county party, has a 5-year plan to flip the county. I don't see it happening, but he has a plan, and so he's one of those people like Sister Danger was talking about, like, you know, the calculating, and he has a plan.
Well, and here's the thing about
just like, when I told him, I said, you know, I'm going to lose this race. He said, of course you are, but it's okay because it does this, this, and this, and this.
Right.
Oh, okay, as long as we're all on the same page.
well, that's the thing. I mean, I think that, you know, because for a number of reasons, and that's the thing, having that 5-year plan. You're right, Rob. Knowing where you live, yeah, it's not going to flip in 5 years. However, is that if the progress, you know, if with that effort will shift the window, and then at least the occasional Democrat will win here and there, you know, maybe, you know, and again, just going to push it. Plus the fact that here's something that, again, that I think that a lot of politicians in general for the last 50 years and earlier never really understood, except for a few, and definitely a problem we have on the left, is not ceding ground to the enemy. Make them fight everywhere, even in the places that they're going to win, because because that's, in a way, you're kind of liberated. If you're running a race that you know you can't win, that actually you get to be a little less restrained. Because I learned this when I saw Al Sharpton running in 2004. Now, Al Sharpton is not my choice, certainly, but he knew there was no chance in hell he was going to be the nominee. So it allowed him to be more open and honest in a way that regular candidates who actually have a chance of winning have to be more measured and calculated. He could just say what the hell he wanted. And so he was able to, you know, to have an impact. Unfortunately, obviously, the results didn't end up being where we wanted it. But, you know, that's something I noticed. And then the other thing about that time period is, like, in 2008, Howard Dean was the party chairman of the DNC, and his thing was a 50-state strategy. And again, he knew he wasn't going to win 50 states, but his thing was don't you know, because if you basically allow an enemy to not have to fight over everything, they can focus their efforts, you know, in where, you know, so now the battleground is becoming your territory and not theirs. So by challenging it, because you think about it, you know, we talked about how Trump winning Michigan and so forth. Well, Michigan was not a Democratic area for a long time, but then thanks to Howard Dean, it pushed in that direction, because they said, we're going to fight you everywhere. And the Republicans, the interesting thing about their fundraising is their fundraising has, you know, when you go national, their fundraising is never as good. So basically, the Democrats were able to get resources from more areas because they were actually knocking on all the doors, and then they were able to push, and then the Republicans just literally got overwhelmed. So you know, the fact that they have that plan, it'll chip away. It'll make ground. And if nothing else, it'll moderate the Republicans. And maybe instead of like conspiracy, you know, addle-brained, you know, like wingnuts, maybe you get old school Republicans, which would be an improvement, sadly, but it would be an improvement.
Yeah. I mean, so one of my game plans here was just to come out with, you know, both guns blazing. I have nothing to lose. And everything to gain. So yeah, I mean, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to make that incumbent earn that seat.
Right.
He's going to earn it. He's going to work for it. You know, the GOP, the county GOP is going to spend money to keep him there. I'm going to make sure of it. So.
I just wanted to add something. You were talking a moment ago about getting people to participate more and whatever. I think there is imminently going to be a resurgence of the union movements all across America in the next 10 years or so, partly as a result of the 40 million people who've just lost their jobs, and stuff. And I think with the resurgence of the unions, I mean, back in the day when I was a kid, unions were always backing Democrats, right? But it's not the case that members of unions are all Democrats. You have just as many people who are conservative who are members of unions because they just happen to have the job in that factory or whatever, right? And so to me, that is a way of swaying. If there is such a thing as attracting conservative voters to a Democratic position or wherever the overton window happens to be on this whatever issue you're talking about, to me, unions is the way to do that. And also it's good for workers at the same time. You know what I mean? And I really hope that there is a lot more talk about unionizing and making unions stronger. I really hope that takes off.
One thing locally in this county that's interesting is the state gets federal money. They take that money and they split it up to all the counties and to all of the different legislative districts and everything else, and all the cities and all the towns. They all get a piece of pie, but they don't just give it to you. You have to apply for it. So there's federal money through the state that's on the table. It's been years since this county has applied for any of that money.
Whoa, what the heck is your person doing? Isn't that their job?
That's their job. That's their job. So from a conservative perspective, we can lower people's taxes by taking the money that the government is throwing at us.
Right. And point out the fact that New Jerseyans give more to the federal taxes than they get back than any other state by far, on the per capita basis by far. So that's our money. We're just getting our own money back.
So I mean, like there is more than most places. There is a conservative message in this county for a Democrat, which is not something you hear often. But in this county in particular, though, there is a conservative message for a Democrat. And
that's what I've been trying to explain to, so self-titled progressives about, that progressive message. The people actually like the stuff. If you get into the nitty-gritty and you take the labels away, people like the stuff because people like stuff, and they ultimately they like good education, they like good healthcare, they like all these things. But when you put the wrappers around it and the labels, then they get a little more. So you can couch all these things in a more in a message in a wrapper that's going to be more appealing to them. And so that's what I was trying to say. You can't go out there and be like, I'm a socialist and blah 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 in Northwest New Jersey. It just you'll get 2 votes and it'll be you and your spouse, and that's it. But you can fight for those exact same ideas and put it in a different wrapper, and it'll work. So but unfortunately, again, political novices don't always get that. But the
Obamacare.
Yeah, exactly.
Obamacare.
Exactly. So to Paul's point about unions, a great example, Paul, of what you're talking about is West Virginia used to be a heavily Democratic state. It was a Democratic state during the Dixiecrats because bigotry. But then but it didn't lose that much when the civil rights stuff happened. It lost some support, but the Democrats, for the most part, would win there.
Ooh, bless you.
Thank you. But then from like the 80s through the mid 90s or late 90s, when Democratic support for unions got soft, and that's at a time when from like 74 to 2000, lots of jobs were lost in West Virginia. The steel industry, coal industry, all these industries got shit hammered. And so a lot of people there felt like, well, I supported the unions, I supported the Democrats, and they didn't stop all their jobs from going away. And so they got pissed. And
instead of blaming the people who are taking their jobs away?
Yes, exactly. Instead of blaming, because the people who, because here's the one thing that the right wing is, at least in the U.S., is very good at framing stuff and making heinous, hideous stuff sound really nice. So when they say like right to work, well, which is anti-union, it's not pro-work. It's basically it's basically pro. You can get fired for no reason, and so but they package these things in a way that people go, yeah, because if you're already a little irritated at your union, not again, it's not the union's fault the job went away. The union fought for it, but they lost that battle. So you're mad at your union, and then someone says, hey, you're giving these union dues, and these union bosses are getting rich and fat. Meanwhile, the union bosses are getting a fraction of what the people who run the plant, who own the plant, are making. But forget that. Just hey, that guy's making $250,000, and so it gets them angry at their leadership, and they have some right to be angry. And then, well, we're the guys who are against those guys who took you. Of course, you're now voting for the guys who fucked you over in the first place. But
they gaslight. Is the shortest way I can think to say it. There is a thing that exists, or a series of events that exists, and rather than deny it or try to say that it didn't happen, they take that thing and they reframe it, they redefine it such that it means something else entirely to the people that they are presenting it to.
The Patriot Act.
Yeah, perfect example.
The Patriot Act.
Yes.
The
bad, right?
Yeah, the contents of the Patriot Act is the exact opposite of the name.
Right. And I think that understanding that is kind of crucial to any campaign or PR that you would endeavor, to put out there, because I've experienced this, witnessed this exact same thing with just let's take a really common and current, like publicly relevant one right now, currently relevant one, white privilege. That word, those words, that phrase means something entirely different to people on the left than it does to people on the right. Entirely. Because the right has taken this concept and they have redefined it, but with overlap, so that unless you spend some amount of time steeped in the opposite philosophy of what you are used to engaging in, it is very difficult for even an intelligent person to discern the difference of what's going on here. I feel like and I feel like that's what?
Defund the police. Defund the police.
Oh yeah, same
Yeah,
thing.
another very, very good one. Yes, 100%. And it's really hard to fight and battle against that. And I guess that I find myself sometimes thinking about how that would play out, what that would look like in actuality to do that. And part of this is because I actually, as sometimes for as evil as I find propaganda, I also find it incredibly brilliant. Like the ability to understand, I guess, like the human mind in that way, and then just completely bulldoze it, like manipulatively, to just to screw with everything, right? To achieve whatever it is, like your evil genius mastermind ends. Like to some degree, I'm like that. There is a form of brilliance there, but those force powers should be used for good.
Yeah.
Like, well, if that makes sense.
And you're right though, because I constantly see people and memes all over the place, particularly with white privilege. Like the shows, I saw something the other day. It was a video, and all it was like showing poor white people that were poor and getting shit hammered by bad weather. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with the whole thing about privilege. The fact that some white people are poor does not mean that white privilege doesn't exist. Because basically, it's all about everything else being equal. If you take two people, everything else being equal, that the white person has fewer disadvantages than the black person, where their education, financial status, all those other things are the same. But you're right.
Sure. The
They turn
fundamental of that, though, is that is showing a negative, right? And so that's what's happening. Like the left is trying to show a negative, and the right is basically saying, in effect, they're taking this idea and they're going. The left says that privilege, the active privilege, not the negative that confers a certain type of privilege, but the word privilege and anything that you may have as that you consider a privilege as a result of anything you've done. This is what the left is saying you do not deserve. You are a bad person for having it. And that's what the right is telling people that the left is saying. But that is not what the left is talking about.
Right.
But it takes, when we're talking about how do you observe a negative, the only way to observe the hole in the door is by discerning the frame around it, such that the space of the door now becomes meaningful and evident to you. And that is a much more difficult thing to show, is that empty space and how it is valuable, how it's meaningful, right? That's a much more difficult thing to show than reframing the door constantly.
Sorry, I want to say I think your description was actually kind of profound.
Well, I'm not going to take credit for it. It's the Tao Te Ching.
Okay.
So, go Lao Tzu. I mean, I've just sort of applied that concept to what we're looking at here, because that's sort of how I perceive it, I guess. So, thank you, but alas, I have learned from. If I can see far, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants.
Phoenix Writer put up another good one: entitlements. And this is something, every time I see this word misused, which is almost every single time it's used anymore, I correct people. Because what happens? What do we say if somebody is feeling self-entitled? We call them entitled. And then, why is this? Because the right wing for 50 years has basically attacked entitlements, as entitlements are bad, and we've gotten this idea that entitlements are bad, but they're not. If you're actually entitled to something, then it's yours. That means you do that thing. The problem is people who basically take something as an entitlement when it isn't. So, for instance, one of the things I've heard, that the real cause of rape is making male entitlement, that makes men feel entitled to women's bodies. We're not entitled to their bodies, but men feel that they are. So then they just take liberties because they think, oh, I can do this because I'm entitled to. But we're not entitled to. So that's what it really means. So entitlement programs. The reason why they're called that is because. And I've heard people say, oh, well, Social Security isn't an entitlement program. Yeah, it fucking is. And that's the whole thing. So if they take it from you, they've stolen from you because that you are entitled to you paid into that system. That's due to you.
Yeah, it's right in the name. It's called an entitlement for a reason.
Yeah, but they've turned that word into a pejorative. They've deliberately made the connotation a pejorative connotation.
Right.
I wanted to point out that Phoenix Writer said something about the Lincoln. So sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like, did we just lose you? Because no, we just heard a youngling.
Yeah, another country heard from. The Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project ads, if you haven't watched everybody here has probably seen them. If you haven't watched any of the ads from the Lincoln Project, oh my God, watch them. The Republicans, the right, the GOP, the right wing in general is brilliant when it comes to advertising. And when they turn their machine on themselves, on their own side, it is a sight to behold. The Lincoln Project ads completely eviscerate Trump.
Yes.
I think they're pretty good ads for the most part. There's some of them that kind of bother me because I think they're kind of cheap shots. And quite frankly, some of them, you could make all the same criticisms about Joe Biden in the particular videos. Having said that, I think some of the Lincoln Project videos have an audience of one. Their intended audience is one, and that's Trump himself. I don't necessarily think they're actually to change anybody's mind. I think they're to piss Trump off because they see Trump as provocable.
Right.
If you piss him off, he'll open his mouth and make a big blunder.
Yes. Oh yeah. And again,
the worst thing he can do is reference those videos on Twitter. He learned his lesson. He doesn't do it anymore.
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why it's so brilliant, because they know, and that's why it's interesting, because like Rob said, they turned it on their own machine, so it's kind of like they're doing all the stuff they were hoping we wouldn't do to them previously. And it's like, wow. And so I actually said earlier today, Tracy, I think it was Tracy. Oh no, it was Mitch posted something, and I actually said, I hope the Democratic ad people are paying attention and taking notes.
Yeah, this is how it's done. This is how it's done. What's interesting is the people at the Lincoln Project have broken Reagan's golden rule. You know, you never speak badly about another Republican, no matter what.
You know why though? Because they don't really see him as a valid Republican.
Well,
and they shouldn't. I mean, he's not.
Right.
What?
I think I'm not really a huge fan of Joe Biden, the politician, but I have to say, whoever's behind his campaign ads has been doing some pretty good ads. He's had some pretty hard-hitting ads. Some of them I kind of objected to because at the time they were released, which was in the middle of the pandemic, I kind of thought that they were hitting Trump from the right. And part of me understands the calculation behind that, but considering that there's so many people who were like Bernie supporters who are going, hey man, you're just proving to us that you're trying to appeal to the other side more than you're trying to appeal to us. And I worry that he was risking losing more of the left than he was going to gain from the right. And
I think some of the
calculated guess, maybe they know more than me. Maybe they have internal polling and shit, you know?
No, I mean, I think some of the calculation isn't trying to win anybody over on the right. I think some of the calculations for some of that is to try to get Republicans to just stay home.
Right.
Like they're not trying to win people over or to get them out. They're trying to keep them home.
Right.
So COVID's going to do that anyway.
Well, the idea is that basically if they see that Joe Biden, okay, he's not going to be, he's going to change things and he's going to be more leftist than they want, but he's not going to be a radical. He's not going to crush them, and it's not going to be, and right now people kind of want most people I think want some stability after like all this stuff. They just want some stability, man.
Like normally I wouldn't say that not voting is a statement, but I think when it comes to Republicans and Trump, the only way that some Republicans can stay true to their values and their ideals and not support Trump is to stay home. That would speak a lot louder than voting for Biden. It would go a lot further from a Republican point of view. That it's
don't you think that there are a lot of them would take sort of Michael's strategy? When a few weeks ago, Michael mentioned about how he wants to show the Democrats that they've lost his vote by voting for the Green Party because he's, this is a vote you could have had. And I kind of understand that logic. And I think, like my brother is, he tends to vote Libertarian, for example, because he last time he just couldn't stand Hillary Clinton and he couldn't in good conscience vote for Trump, so he voted for Johnson. And so from my point of view, at least he's not wasting his vote by not voting or whatever. At least he's out there, like Michael said, he's registering his disgust with the traditional candidates. And I think that's perfectly valid. This is one of the reasons I really, really gripe about people when they say, oh, if you vote for third party, you're letting in the whichever presidential candidate I don't want to win. You're letting that guy in. I think third party voting should always be considered valid precisely because you're registering a protest vote. And even if you think this election we can't afford protest votes and all that kind of stuff, I'm sorry, I disagree. Everyone has to vote their conscience, or the whole concept of voting is meaningless.
Well, see, the thing is, I guess it depends on what you want your protest vote to say. So I guess here's the difference: the jeopardy for a liberal doing that versus a jeopardy for a conservative doing that is completely different. And that's that's kind of the point that the Biden campaign's trying to make. Is that, okay, you may not like me, but it's not going to be apocalyptic. Whereas if Trump gets another term for the left, it will be apocalyptic. And that's the difference. And that's the problem with the comparison, is that the jeopardy is not the same.
Okay.
So
Sorry, Rob. I just want to say real quick. I mean, I know there's no election that either side should ever be complacent in. And this election is specifically, definitely, we shouldn't take it for granted. But I mean, Trump is imploding right before our eyes at the moment. Okay. And so I don't know. I've got a really strong feeling that he's basically doomed. But like I say, you can't be complacent. And I completely lost my train of thought. Rob, you go ahead and say what you're going to say.
The difference between left and right right now, Trump is the incumbent, and there is no right alternative for him. There's no right-wing alternative. It's Trump, it's Biden, or it's nobody. The left is a much larger tent. Range of values and ideas that run the entire spectrum. The right has a very narrow set of ideals and principles. Very narrow.
Which is what I was going to say, because Trump just said the other day to John Hannity. John Hannity asked him, what are your plans for the next 4 years? And he
they're gonna be great.
Yeah,
they're huge.
So, I mean, quite frankly, we would never have accepted that from any previous presidential candidate, whether they were in office or not. I mean, if you don't have an agenda, why the hell are you running?
Right. And that's why the protest vote for the right is to not vote at all, because they don't have an alternative.
Can we talk about something that the Green Machine here said in the comments, like relative to this? Who has said, yes, I still can't see any difference between between 2017 Trump and 2020 Trump. Yes, I know there's like words, and they were like, Trump was in there, so it was like a train wreck trying to come out of my mouth, like. But I actually find that a very interesting and poignant comment, because I hear that sort of sentiment a lot. I mean, my own dad actually has expressed this exact sentiment to me, which is, he expressed it when around the first vote, and he's expressed it again, coming up this one, which is, it's going to be another 4 years with a crappy president. He's not great, but whatever. Those 4 years will pass, and the world will continue on. And which I guess I feel like is kind of lazy thinking. Of course, he's very old. So, I mean, not that old, but, old enough, right? Like, so, but, but I guess I find that fascinating, because the first time around, I pretty much agreed with him. Like, I did not vote for Trump. I will say that out loud. So I did not vote for Trump, but I also felt that if Trump won, yes, it was going to be terrible, but it was going to be like my dad said, it'll be 4 years of bad, and then we will have a new president, and America will go on. But in that 4 years, in this time, I've actually changed my stance on that perspective. And I do not think that is the case anymore. I think there have been very scary, fundamental, significant changes or movements, forceful movements towards those changes from him and his administration that make another 4 years not just another 4 years.
Specifically, what happened in Washington, D.C. when the protests started. I mean, he was ready to move troops all over the country. If they would have let him do it, he would do it.
Yes. I mean, I can't tell you how happy I was when I saw the first of the Joint Chiefs of Staff finally come out and say, actually, no, we do not do like as this guy is projecting that we do, and we want the American public to know that. Like, because I had been saying for weeks, I'm just like, where are the Joint Chiefs in this? For crying out loud, like, say something, you guys, because otherwise we're sitting here just terrified that our own military is about to turn Gestapo on us for real. Like,
election night 2016. I cried. I had a drink. And then I thought, it's only 4 years. We can get through this. How much damage can he do in 4 years? Holy
why did you dare the future like that? What was it? Fate. What have you got for 2020? What?
It's so much worse than what we thought, but not as bad as it could have been. As we are right now, we have survived.
Seriously, do you remember like 2 years ago when everybody was like, all the famous people are dying this year? 2020 looked at like 2019 and 2018 and was like, hold my beer. I mean,
Remember in 2015, because I think that's when Prince died and David Bowie. And we were like, oh, it's a bad year. And I'm like, oh, I would long for the day where that's the worst thing that's going on is celebrities dying. And the thing is, and that's what, and I guess that's, to your point from before, Paul, that's what I see as kind of different. Because, it's okay. Look, for instance, I didn't want John McCain to be president, but I also feel like if John McCain had beaten Obama, would the country have fallen into the abyss? No.
No, I do not think so. I wasn't a huge fan of John McCain because, of course, not Republican, but also, at least John McCain is a real goddamn fucking veteran, right?
I mean, it's where we
he actually gave a shit about America. He actually gave a shit about America.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
That's why if someone did a protest vote in 2008, I'd be like, all right, I disagree, but with your choice, but whatever. But yeah, this is literally like we are on the eve of potentially turning true police, fascist police state. And so what I have to say to anyone, so I guess I would say this about voting one's conscience. I suppose you do have to do that, but I have to question the values and the morals of someone who can look at that and their conscience be perfectly okay with the thought of allowing that to happen. Because that's really what it is. It's Joe Biden, bland Joe Biden, who's not going to be anywhere near as progressive as you'd like, or literally the fucking Gestapo and secret police and Nazis in the street. Like, really? The conscience is okay with that? No. Then I would say to somebody who does that, they're allowed to be
hyperbolic. I don't believe
Goth is over there like, pick me.
Any person who that conscience is okay with that, I'm not okay with them. I guess that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that we're at the edge of the survival of the republic.
Yes.
I agree with the fact that we're in a perilous position right now. I absolutely agree with that fact. However, I also agree that people with different opinions of good faith can come to different conclusions based on the same evidence. I'm sorry. I honestly feel that way. And I feel I understand Joe's position perfectly. And I think it's valid.
In general,
that does not, for me, invalidate the other position that you're arguing against. It just means that you have a good point.
In general,
has its own good point, and I don't necessarily think you can hold them up like apples and oranges and go, this point definitely superior to the other one.
Okay, but Agent wanted to say something. Agent, you were raising your hand.
I'm with Joe, and I'm just going to say, minus the coronavirus, Iran would be a smoldering glass parking lot right now because Trump would have nuked it.
Right.
If it weren't for the coronavirus coming along and being a bigger problem.
Don't multiple people have to actually activate nuclear arms?
And I guess I would say to you, Paul, I would say in principle, I agree with you. But I'd say that we're in a so it's the specific circumstance outweighing the general principle.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say is Paul, in general, I agree with you. But the problem is we're at a point where your opinion doesn't mean anything if there is no country.
Well, that's why I'm voting for Biden. I get it, right? I understand the argument. That's
the differing opinion. You have a right to your opinion, and I'm like you understood you. You have a right to your opinion. You have a right to vote third party. You have a right to protest vote. And that's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, we're at a point where those principles and those opinions and those feelings mean nothing when there's no country left. It's kind of like
and for me voting is I suppose like praying is for religious people. I mean, it's a deeply personal thing. I think it should be a matter of conscience. I really do. And if your conscience won't let you support a candidate, like for example, I don't care. I wouldn't matter to me, for example, if Joe Biden supported torture, I couldn't give him my vote. I don't care. I couldn't do it. Right. So that's for me. I will never give my political support to someone who does something that I think is like a violation of civilization and human decency. I just, no.
Well, here's a question now, Paul. So just say both candidates support torture. What do you do then?
I don't vote.
Yeah. See, for me, if the answer is the result is that either candidate's going to be torture, now I look at everything else. Okay. Are they also they are also a rape.
Again, I understand that logic perfectly, and you're not wrong. I get that totally. But at the end of the day, a vote is literally a declaration of your political support. That's what a vote is.
I disagree. I disagree.
What do you think a vote? What do you think a vote is, Sirius? If you wouldn't define it like that,
I don't think my vote is just about me. I've never.
I agree with that too. But it starts there.
The thing is, like, again, because I guess because I am ultimately a pragmatist. At the end of the day, I don't care if an idea is left, right, or center, as long as it has a what I consider to be a good goal.
as long as it's a good idea, yeah.
And a reasonable way to get to it. So, and it actually shows results in the end. So the thing is that, there are things that, we talked in the past, maybe not in this hang up, but some of the other ones. Like, I don't believe in utopia. I don't think the humans are too screwed up to ever get to any kind of utopia. But there are people who believe in utopic systems, and I would love there to be a utopia. I've even allowed myself to craft what I think would be the ideal utopia in my head. I will never vote to support that, though, because I think that it would, even though I think if we could get there, it would be a good thing. I also think that what I want doesn't inherently trump everybody else's desires and needs. So so I guess what I would say, again, if people want to vote whatever and they feel like I just can't support this person because whatever, they don't like what color suit they wear, that's morally irreprehensible to them, whatever, I don't care. But the whole thing is that I guess I would say anyone who looks at the totality, see that thing, as long as you're looking at the totality, and I think a lot of times people will pick the one thing, and as I said to somebody, a lot of people were trying to tell me, and people that were on the political left, oh, you can't vote for Biden because he's a racist. Well, first of all, I don't think that's true. But even if it were true, I know Trump is a racist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like 100%. Oh my God.
Racist 1 and racist 2. I do what all black people do. We assume that every candidate is going to be at least a little racist or support policies are at least a little racist. We have to live with that. So instead, I go, okay, so that's actually off the table, because if it's racist 1 and racist 2, I can't decide between them. So now I'm forced to say, well, what else is going to happen? Because I'm going to be affected by all that, and everybody else is too.
I wanted to ask you a question, Joe, because last week I made a comment which I, upon reevaluation, I thought was a bit ill-judged. And I've had quite a few black friends in my life, especially here in Britain. I've asked this question and I get different answers. So I don't think there's like a common way of thinking about this, but you and I have been acquainted for more than 10 years now, and I've never actually asked you this. Some people will say racism comes in degrees, and other people will say, no, you're either racist or you're not.
No, it definitely comes in degrees. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. That was my sort of understanding, but I've had several of my black friends go, no. If you're even a little bit racist, that's too racist for me.
Can I kind of?
Oh, can you jump in line? You want to jump from position 4 to position 2? What?
Yeah. I'm a white guy in a white shirt.
I know. You know what? Just go ahead and accept your privilege over me. Go ahead, buddy. Like, you're on the top row right now. I guess that means you're above us down here upstairs.
But it's in my brain, and if I don't, it'll go away.
That's okay. I see how it is. Like 3 white dudes on the top and a woman and a person of color on the bottom. See where we are, Sirius?
Yeah, I'm used to it. Yeah.
I'm genderqueer.
Actually, I'm not.
I'm genderqueer.
But I mean, I don't want to bring my private life into it, so.
And we don't know that he can't sub as a bottom.
Agent of Doubt just went there, though, so there it is.
So anyway, okay, every person alive, every one of us, okay, let's just say the U.S., every single person in the U.S. has been subjected to the same messaging, the same images, the same culture forever. All of us. We have all absorbed the messages from around us, all of us. And every single one of those messages affects all of us. It affects us all to different degrees, but it affects all of us. And because of that, and because it's been since birth, we all have implicit biases, all of us. How we deal with those as we grow older is going to depend on how much self-reflection we do, how much we reach out into the world beyond our bubble, how much education that we seek out. I mean, I said on a previous show that I used to be the I am colorblind person. Then I realized, no, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm not. And it's good that I'm not. And it's good that I'm not, because now I can see my flaws and I can see how I'm missing the messaging that I should be getting by being colorblind.
Right.
So, yes, it's degrees. And those degrees are going to depend more on how much that person has educated themselves and reflected than anything else.
Well, that's the thing. And so basically, for instance, okay, like the person we were talking about earlier that made those, was basically talking over the black people she's supposedly helping. Now, is she? There's this thing I distinguish between somebody who is a racist and person who does something or says something that is racist. Now, is she a racist in the classical? No, I'm sure she's not. I'm sure she doesn't go around, trying. In fact, she's trying to be anti-racist. However,
the best of intentions.
Right, she has the best of intentions. However, because she is privileged, and because she probably comes at it from a kind of condescending, paternalistic mindset, because she's rescuing, saving the black people, which again basically still puts her up above us. So she doesn't even recognize, and it's actually hard. That's actually harder to deal with. It's easy to see the guy who's yelling nigger and beating people up, and everyone knows that's wrong, or most of us know that's wrong. It's the more subtle stuff that's actually harder to deal with, because if you challenge somebody on it, they're actually more likely to get defensive. You call an actual, racists don't like being called racist, but for the most part they know they are, and they don't really care. They just don't want you to they don't want you to basically invalidate their argument because they are.
But I think I don't know if it's just me or not, but it feels very much like there was sometime in the sort of 15 years following the assassination of Martin Luther King, there was enough social shaming of racism going on where people didn't want to sort of be as open about it, and that slowly started to change. And I wouldn't like to draw a line on the calendar and say when it started to change, but certainly in the past 10 or 15 years, it seemed ever since, I suppose my awareness of it was when people on YouTube started talking about race realism as opposed to racism. Do you remember that? That was about 2010, as I recall. Yeah. And there were a whole bunch of people doing videos on that subject and bringing up all that IQ bullshit and other stuff like that, criminality, and but they're calling it race realism, and that's when those people were making. They said anti-racist is code for anti-white, and back in those days, in 2010, the term anti-racist, I had never heard that before, but I guess it's an Angela Davis invention from the 70s.
Who's Angela Davis?
Oh yeah. Rob's pointing at Curious. He said almost exactly that a little while ago, because he's what he is. It's kind of funny. But yeah, what gets me is I can't remember the name of the guy now. But they're the big supposedly scientific racist guy that all the race realists point at. What I really find funny about about those guys is they'll point to that, and again, I forget his name. They point to him and say, "Well, see, he proved that IQ is race based." But even
you're thinking of Stefan Molyneux, aren't you?
No, not the YouTuber. There was this guy from I don't know, like the 70s and 80s. Okay. But the guy who they are looking to, if you look at what his work is, even he's only admitted, based on his findings, that only half of the difference was what he was attributing to race, and he was at least attributing the other half of it to socioeconomic things. What's that?
Nothing. I'm just thanking Green in the audience for telling me who Angela Davis was.
So the thing was that, and part of what that same guy's results even showed is that the average IQ of black people went from 91 to 94 over 20-year period. It's not like we just magically genetically got better. It's just, the social economic systems changed. So, yes, you are a white supremacist, Kira. Stop bullshitting.
Oh my God! Don't even
I
make me get
always find
started.
it
No,
hilarious.
I have a fucking rant right here, so I'm just gonna let you talk for a minute. Let it come out of my mouth.
Oh yeah, but I always laugh, and I said this before. I've said this several times before, but when I see any kind of racial supremacist, they're always like the worst possible specimen from their group. They're always they're never like some Adonis who's brilliant, a high IQ and physically fit and very successful.
Hold on. Can I just throw one in? It's kind of like that, but I mean, I do think that Milo Yiannopoulos was pretty good looking. Sadly gay, and also, I mean, even though his boyfriend was black or fiance or husband or whatever, I don't even know, but I mean, he's out there on the alt-right doing the thing, so
until
sucking that dick. I don't know. I guess is what he likes.
until they dropped him like a hot potato.
Yeah, he's a token.
He's the token gay guy with a token black guy boyfriend. Yeah. This is that's terrible.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just like girl writes what? She still doesn't understand that they don't like her. She's just useful to them.
Well, Candace Owens as well.
I've given it a thought, Paul, and I again agree with Joe, but for different reasons. Paul, I don't think that for a lot of people, votes start with voting about yourself. Because just hear me out here. How would Trump then have a large voting bloc dedicated to him of people who he's fucking over?
Because they don't know that he's doing that. They don't see that he's doing that. And a really good example is the stimulus checks. I mean, these people are like, thanks Trump for my stimulus check. And I'm like, why are you thanking that dude? He's literally giving you, like, he isn't even.
Right.
Like, and you're getting your own money back. It's not coming out of his personal bank account. He didn't do that. I mean, where do you think he got that from? But they don't see that. And I don't know what it is that causes that. But that is not the connection that they make. And therefore, yay Trump, right?
I don't think most people that support President Trump because of his political policies. I think they support President Trump because he's a cult leader who Trump pisses off the people they want pissed off.
Yeah, right. I tend to agree with that. Yeah. So I was originally third in line, but now as it turns out, I'm second to last. Actually, no, I am last because everybody here has spoken on this but me. So, yeah, I'm not even that. So, whatever. That's okay. I'll bring up the rear. Surprise, guys.
Whoa, just saying. We're getting pegged. We're getting pegged. Look out.
That's okay. It's okay. I learned what lube was a long time ago. I'll be nice. So, what I wanted to say, and this is kind of actually harkens back a little bit beyond what we're like the current point that this topic has reached, but you guys were talking specifically Goth and Sirius. You guys were talking about kind of single issue voting. Like, what would you do if you found out that both candidates were proponents of torture? What would you do? Then who would you vote for, right? And that was kind of where you guys diverged in what your perspectives of voting on were. And I guess that point in conversation, just once again, because I am actually close to my dad. I love my dad very much. And even though politically, basically we just stand around the bonfire in his backyard, drink Jack and Coke, and just bash on each other for like incoherently. That's like a family tradition. So that's like a thing we do. But I still love him, even though we are on definitely different ends of that spectrum. And back when Trump was the first run, I had said to him, I just said, I said, Dad, I don't understand how you can vote for a person that it is a known assaulter of women, because I, your daughter, am a woman, and you are voting for a man who is willing to assault a woman. That woman could have been me. And I know for a fact, because you've done it in my past, you will literally run down the road with a baseball bat trying to hit someone's car if you think they are threatening me. So, how can you vote for a man that is known to threaten other women? What if that woman was me? How do you do that? And my dad said to me, so some words that I guess I took very much to heart, and I probably the most faultless counter argument to why people vote the way they do. Like, it was the one thing, like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm my dad and I'm biased or whatever, but he said, he says, I don't think that Trump is a good guy. I think that he is probably pretty terrible, and he's done very terrible things. But also, Hillary Clinton has done very terrible things that, what with her and troops and various scandals, I believe that she has done very terrible things as well. And at the end of the day, when I go to vote, I have to choose between which one of these people and the terrible things that they've done that I think that I can deal with most, right? Or deal with more easily, or bear with, as it were. And for reasons that are his own, and I don't think having anything to do with sexism, having much more to do with his own father and the military and other such things, he was just like, I personally cannot bear to vote for somebody that puts the lives of so many people in, like, just throws them away the way, because this is how he perceived it, throws the lives of so many people away who are there to defend our lives. And to him, this was a greater issue, right? And who's to say, whose values are correct in that? They're both very terrible things, right? So it's kind of like a no-win situation. But he was just like, at the end of the day, you just have to choose for yourself which of these you think you can stomach for the next 4 years. Basically, it's very, I mean, it's kind of curmudgeonly, right? But I guess that there. So when I look at voting, I'm not a one issue voter. You cannot be. Like, that's ridiculous. That's like saying I'm a one issue relationship haver. Like, oh, if you did one thing wrong, fuck it. Like, never. I mean, like, whatever.
I'm not
like,
a one-issue voter. I'm not a
you know.
one-issue voter, but I just have red lines. I won't vote for anybody who supports torture, and I won't vote for anybody who actively wants to go to war.
Yeah, but we're
I'm
kind of in a position where
I'm
we
for
don't have
dialing
a
the wars back.
choice, right? Like, we don't have a choice, and Sirius is kind of right. Like, we have to, like, Sirius, and how do we say this? Like Jubilee, like, your 75th Jubilee or something.
It's supposed to be Jubblies, because last week was Titty McGraw, and before that was Boobs McGee.
I mean, I've actually been to Titty McGraw. Like, I have beads and everything to show for it. So I'm like, hold on, I thought that was like in February. Like,
Wait, there's a place called Kitty McGraw.
COVID has really screwed up everyone's timelines right now.
I spent a lot of years on estrogen, so I figured
What do you mean? Is there actually a Titty McGraw? Have you never been to New Orleans at Mardi Gras? Or
No,
like
I haven't.
I don't know, like when the Steelers go to the Super Bowl? Like,
I've been in New Orleans. I've been during Mardi Gras. I've been Jazz Fest, but not Mardi Gras. So
oh man, if you want to see boobs, go there or to Sturgis. I mean, I'm just saying.
Go there.
I now have to go for. I got to go to a place called Titty McGraw. Shit.
So I've been actually following a story because of my falling out with not only Robert but other people who were basically QAnon sucked in, and I have this theory that the QAnoners who think that Trump is supposed to drain the swamp, and that there's this child sex ring and Comet Pizza and all that ping pong. I think they're absolutely wrong about Trump trying to expose it all, and that all of the people that are Trump's political enemies are the pederasts. Because I found the court case that was dismissed 4 days before the election, where both Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were named as defendants. Right, the judge that ended up terminating the lawsuit 4 days before the election was appointed by Reagan. The previous judge who had the case, and I don't even understand how a new judge was put in. The previous judge who had the case was appointed by Obama, and somehow just was recused. I can't.
Well, they can recuse themselves.
They can, but I can't even find a record of that happening. All I find is new judge says no. This is squashed, right? So now there's so we didn't have the name of the 13-year-old girl who was in that lawsuit that was allegedly raped by Trump and Epstein being named in that lawsuit. But now we have Virginia Roberts Guthrie, who's been saying that Jeffrey Epstein basically child
Didn't
sex
kill himself?
traded her. No, she said that she was basically sex trafficked to Alan Dershowitz, right? So Dershowitz wants access to these other files about Jeffrey Epstein, and then this Tuesday, a mystery filing came in to the court saying, no, please do not give him access to these Jeffrey Epstein files, right? And by my reading of this filing, especially the word prominent,
Read it out loud, unless it's too long. Read it. Just read
it. It is way too long. But basically, my best guess is it's Trump. Trump doesn't want Alan Dershowitz to get hold of the secret files about Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, I mean,
so that Alan Dershowitz can defend himself against Virginia Roberts Guthrie.
Anonymous has leaked the names of 6 children. They're not children anymore; they're adults, but 6 children that were allegedly paid off by Donald Trump in the millions and millions of dollars. 3 boys and 3 girls, all of whom, obviously accused Trump of some kind of sexual assault. But yeah.
Well, and see, that's the thing. I mean, well, it's especially ironic, especially given what we talked about last week off camera, which I won't go into detail. But this idea that one person was thinking about was thinking that about the whole QAnon about child sex trafficking and all that, considering what they're on the hook for. It's like, it's it's just kind of mind-boggling, and how did that work on those other people, especially given the revelations that came out about that person?
Yeah.
I wanted to say, because merely a fan just said that the Epstein thing feels like it's infected people from both sides.
And I agree.
Because, but that's because we're doing guilt by association. There are
no, it's because pedophiles are fucking everywhere.
Well, I mean, there's that too. But I mean, one of the pieces of evidence that Anonymous had leaked about this was the flight logs for people who went to the island, and it's a list of notable people, and one of them is Madonna.
Prince, one of the princes of England too.
Andrew.
Another one is Barack Obama. Now, I'm sorry. I mean, it's not just because I like Obama, and I do like Obama. It's not just because I like Obama. I have a hard time believing that Barack Obama is involved in pedophilia. I just
okay. Hold on. You obviously know nothing personal here, but incredulity is not an argument.
I know.
Oh, zing! No, he brought out the fallacies. Yeah.
He's right, and I don't disagree. But like I said, that's why I brought up my own personal feelings. I said from the beginning, I personally like Obama. And because of that, I have a hard time believing
I don't think it's just because of that, though. Because I think that the people who are guilt by association, as you put it, which is a fair thing to say, that there are probably a lot of people that are just like, oh, did your plane go over the airspace of the island? Guilty! You know, there are people that are like that. So there's no doubt that there's guilt by association. But for anybody who's willing to give it half a second of thought, it isn't just because you like Obama, probably. It's probably because there's also no corroborating evidence to the story, right? And that's probably, that stands true for some of the other people, right? But also not for, I mean, come on. Was one of these 6 kids by any chance named Ivanka? I wonder, because...
Well, that's the thing, especially with Prince Andrew, because he's trying to claim that nothing, I didn't know this person. Then there's multiple pictures from multiple dates. So he didn't meet her just once; he met her multiple times, and it's like,
Sure.
And a lot of people,
Right.
A lot of people made a big deal about Bill Clinton having been on the island. Again, nobody said anything about Obama. It's just that his name was on the paperwork of somebody who has been on the island. But Jeffrey Epstein lived on the island and is a massive, massive donor.
right.
So yeah, anybody who's running for anything of any noticeability is going to talk to him.
Sure. I think there's the guilt by association thing that you mentioned a minute ago, and that Sister Danger referenced as well. I think is really, really relevant here because, like, in secret societies, whether it's the Freemasons or the Skull and Bones Society or whatever, they'll have different rites of initiation.
I used to want to go to Yale.
Yeah,
Anyway,
these rites of
sorry.
initiation are deliberately compromising to your honor and integrity, and the whole point is that everyone witnesses everyone else degrading themselves, and therefore you've all got something on each other.
Yes.
And so even if you're not doing the whole pedophile thing, but you're mixing with people who you fucking know are,
Yes.
guilt by association is almost fair enough.
The fact that you did not do something at that point is basically down, like maybe at that time, not that great, but once you have established yourself and built up an entire career in life, the complicity in those things is now very great. So it's, how do we say that? Like it's collateral value grows exponentially, I guess.
I was recruited actually into the Freemasons. I went to one of their things and spoke to some people there. They wanted to bring me on as a member, and I ended up walking away because they said that they were a Christian organization.
You have to expose your nipple as well to prove you're a man.
Yeah, I said I can't be part of this. I don't believe in God. So I walked away. But for somebody who is coming like from nowhere, to have a group like the Freemasons, and one obviously a group I've heard of, to be like, yeah, we want you as a member. Well, that's tempting because they look out for you. It's a brotherhood. You do something wrong, and they got your back. It's so yeah. Anyway, that was
history is being made, folks. Look.
Wow.
Oh God.
Wow.
Anytime Curious agrees with me, and I feel that I need to reevaluate my position.
So
At the very least, examine it.
I think the association with Obama might be something entirely different. Piecing together what I can from the QAnon kooks who have things almost completely wrong. The few parts that stand out as just true facts. One of them is the sweetheart deal that Epstein got in 2008, where people basically have gone on record saying no, the CIA was saying that he's an operative. And from that, just looking at the history of the U.S. government of trying to create leverage by creating the opportunities for people to be caught on tape with young women, that they weren't married to, that were underage boys, all of that stuff. It's basically it's possible that the CIA has a program of just creating leverage on powerful and influential people.
I think that's definitely true, and I think the Russians as well.
Yeah.
Well, now one thing also too I'd point out to the QAnon believers is that Obama wasn't president in 2008. He got elected in 2008, but he didn't take office until January 20th, 2009.
Yeah.
And as somebody running for office, he needs money.
Right, but the thing, my whole thing is that people were saying he got the sweetheart deal in 2008, but Obama wasn't president to give him the sweetheart deal.
Yeah. I'm just saying that if Obama was meeting with him for something, it could have had something to do with intelligence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to bring in something real quick that Phoenix Writer says here. Skull and Bones is a trip, and that Bohemian Grove is a trip. I grew up about 9 miles from Bohemian Grove.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was the fire chief in the town I grew up in, and he was the fire marshal for our section of the county. And consequently, he was one of the very few people who's not a member of Bohemian Grove to be allowed to go in and do, to inspect that they had their fire safety stuff up to standard. And, locally, there's a lot of weird rumors about what goes on or doesn't go on up at Bohemian Grove. People have a lot of theories. Sometimes you don't know. It's just talk, whatever. I did have a friend in the 80s who worked there as a valet, parking all the cars for the rich people who go to the Bohemian Grove. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is because one time when I was a boy, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 years old, my dad came home from having done his inspection at the Grove, and he was like visibly disturbed, right, by whatever. And I remember I was too young to understand, but he said that they were men walking around dressed like druids. And I didn't know what that meant. I was a kid. I didn't know what a druid was. And then I asked my grandfather, and he said it's kind of like it's kind of like a religion, but it's more like like a spiritual or something like that rather than Christian or whatever. That's all he said to me. I didn't really understand that because I was too young to understand that at the time, But my dad was walking around saying that they're dressed like druids, and I hope that he didn't mean.
I have to go to the bathroom, guys. I'll be right back.
All right, I'll see you in a second. I hope he didn't mean Klansmen, but he might have meant sort of like some sort of religious rituals, because I hate to even bring it up, but back about 21 years ago, Alex Jones he broke into Bohemian Grove and filmed this whole like ritual to the sacrifice of what was it? The sacrifice of care. That's what it was. And he was definitely really in the Grove, and he definitely did get some illegal footage from inside. So, I mean, because they protect their privacy fiercely at the Grove. Women are not allowed at the Grove at all. And every Republican president has always gone to the Grove after their president. And some of the Democratic presidents, I think I'm correct in saying Barack Obama's never been to the Grove. But I know Bill Clinton went to the Grove. I'm pretty sure Jimmy Carter even went to the Grove after he was president. So when you've got these, even if it's not technically a secret society or whatever, when you've got these exclusive places that the outside world isn't even allowed to go into without risking getting shot, it creates an atmosphere where conspiracy theories can flourish. And this is how I think things like QAnon and other sort of conspiracy theory based, groups of people, because we give them a lot of red meat. We give them a lot of red meat, to sort of bite onto.
Secret societies are repugnant in a free society.
John F. Kennedy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what they actually do, because here's the thing. Like a lot of the secret society stuff that we think of, this shares a lot in common with the fraternities that were formed in the 1800s mostly. Now, I was in a fraternity in college, and like obviously I'm not going to go into what was done, but because it was nothing sinister, nothing that I would be morally ashamed of, and there's a lot of imagery, but because a lot of it's based on like mysticism from the 1800s. And so a lot of it is, and so in the 1800s, most of this stuff would have seemed perfectly normal. In modern society, it seems really creepy and weird. So, I think that, but you're right, because the fact that it's secret, we don't know what it is, so people get nervous about it. It's just like, the TPP negotiations. I remember what was one of the big things that people were upset about because it was negotiated in secret. Well, every single trade deal is negotiated in secret because until you actually have a working framework that's agreed upon, you don't want details to get out because people start clamoring about the details about something that may not end up in the final agreement. And so then those things go back. And it wasn't and eventually once there was a framework, there was a vote in the Senate. Everybody got to see it. So it wasn't like it was actually a secret document. It wasn't a secret, what was ratified or was attempted to be ratified wasn't a secret deal, but there's negotiations. But people are so paranoid about it's secret. We don't know. Like, there's a lot of things we don't know and we don't find out until later. And that doesn't make them sinister necessarily.
The problem with the secret societies, though, other than the people on the outside don't know what's going on, and it can breed conspiracy theories. They're also easily manipulated from the inside too, though. And then the people that are involved in those organizations end up getting trapped by what we were talking about before, guilt by association. We've got something on you, we've got something on you, and they're able to manipulate things that way. So yeah, I'm sure it breeds conspiracy theories, but it also can breed problems.
Oh yeah, and actually, that's one of the biggest things about Ivy League schools. It's not that those schools are all necessarily so much better than other schools. It's that when the people you meet there are connected. They come from wealthy families, people who have influence, and so you get to meet people. And so that look, who do we? You're more likely to get a job from somebody you know than somebody you don't, assuming that you like each other. And there is very much of one hand washes the other. So I'll do a favor and give that person a job, and then they'll hook me up or one of my kids or another friend of mine at a later time. And that's not new, and it's not even exclusive to the wealthy. It's just that the wealthy get the most benefit out of it, like they do everything.
My granddad used to say to me that in order to get really, really rich in America, you have to have the permission of other rich people. And he also said that the way the world works is on a system of, basically everything's corrupt is what he was suggesting, but he didn't use that word. He said everything operates on a system of secrets and favors. They know each other, powerful people, really, really, really mega powerful people, know each other's secrets and do each other favors. And the thing is, if you break that pact, if you don't do the favor that you're supposed to do, then your secret's going to come out.
Sure.
My grandmother always said, it's not who you know, it's who you blow.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Well, and if you think about it, and it stands to reason that would work that way, because what ends up happening is that people with money, power, and influence want to maintain their money, power, and influence. And unfortunately, people up and down the economic scale seem to operate under the zero-sum game approach to economics and everything else, and that's not actually how the world actually works. But so it's people get they want to control who's getting in their at their level, and that's why if you're nouveau riche, you tend to be kind of an outcast. You may have the you may have the money, but you don't have the long-term wealth, and so you're kind of kept at arm's length because you see the world differently. You just do. Someone who just came into money is going to have a completely different attitude about money than somebody who's always had it.
Oh, sure.
I was thinking that Trump's executive order yesterday that prioritizes job skills over degrees has something to do with this, that he wants to appoint people to positions that they are not qualified for on paper with a degree, and he wants to do certain people favors and just completely oust everyone who has an education from any liberal institution,
right,
and put in people who have job skills. And how do you prove that you have the job skills? I don't know. That's a weird hiring process then. But that's what I was originally thinking, was it's all about cronyism and getting out everybody who has enough education to know how fucked up he is, right? But also looking back, just like earlier in the week, there was ACA 5 in California got passed by their House, and basically what that does, it removes the protections of people from discrimination. And it's a weird thing where they have in their constitution, based on race, gender, and all that you can't be discriminated against or have preferential treatment. And somehow they have a whole bunch of Asian people on board with this to remove those protections because of the and preferential treatment part. Because on the federal level, we have affirmative action programs that California can't institute fully. And basically, if this passes, that we will be able to have more other diversity, but not as many white or Asian students in California schools, right? And so Trump's reaction to this, that there might be more minorities in California schools, is to say, you know what? Now the federal government isn't even going to hire based on degrees. It's just going to be skills based, and we're still going to be white. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And everything he does is very reactionary, based on like what happened the last 2 days.
Oh yeah, well he's like a goldfish. He has no memory.
Yeah, I wonder if he even remembers about Twitter or War with Iran.
I'm not convinced that those people do their own Twitters. I mean, like what? Their Twitters are just PR. I mean, I'm not saying they don't reflect the person or some kind of branding of the office, but I don't think Trump actually writes his own Twitters.
To that I have to say Kofifi.
Yeah, no, Trump absolutely. There's zero doubt.
Horrible. What?
No one has been able to wrestle his phone away from him.
Yeah, Trump absolutely writes his own tweets. Absolutely, there's no doubt.
3 a.m. on the throne, he's writing his own tweets.
Oh, there's always ways to make him even more sad and pathetic.
Well, you remember the Kofifi tweet, right?
Yes, but also again, if you're the PR person, I would imagine that it is your job to craft messages that tend to that brand and do it in a certain way. So
I think what might have happened with the Kofifi is that he was tweeting, and I think maybe somebody literally tried to grab the phone out of his hand.
Probably.
Well, his vocabulary when not reading directly from a teleprompter does not really incite my confidence towards his spelling and grammatical skills. So
I mean, there are people that use his account, and you can tell when it's somebody other than him.
Right.
So
it's usually pretty clear.
So the QAnon people, every time he makes a grammatical error, right, what they do is they say he planned that grammatical error, and he did this QAnon drop. He left a message, and he said, I'm going to misspell this word. It'll be like this number of characters in, right? And what I found astounding is, like, when I saw these QAnon proofs, what I did not believe was the timestamp on the website. How hard would it be to go in and edit the timestamp on a website to say that you predicted the future in a tweet that happened later? So, like, when you're used to YouTube and Twitter and websites where you can't edit the timestamp of things, when another website comes out that is completely editable and has timestamps that you're trusting, your trust is in the wrong place.
Right.
You could make an entirely false blog with timestamps saying that you have been an author back since 1990 and say that your website has the timestamps to prove it. If it's on your own website, I don't believe it.
Right.
But these Q proofs that they put out, it's always like some word that he intentionally misspells. And they have another post in it that says, hey, could you throw something like tippy top into a speech? And then they'll show a speech the next day that shows that he used the word tippy top, right?
You know, if this is true,
but the original thread of the entire post on their website could have been manipulated to look like it happened the day before, and they just picked a strange word out of his speech
Oh yeah, gotcha.
to make
And
it look like they have some prognostication ability.
Well, also the other thing that can happen too, since his vocabulary is so limited, as Sister Danger has pointed out, if you know what he's going to talk about, you can predict probably 70-80% of the words he's going to use.
The best word that they predicted to me was when he said tippy top, because that's like in nobody's vocabulary, really, and not even his. It was a very strange thing that he
I mean,
said.
if you're in second grade.
So he said tippy top, but the post where they said that they predicted it could have been backdated.
I hate you right now, Green Machine. I just want you to know that.
So you had
I
like
have
the
the
original
best words.
1,000 people or so that were into QAnon. And then when it became a movement and like thousands of people went and checked that website, they look at all the proofs
Yeah.
and they trusted all of the timestamps as if they had been there to see the timestamp before the action happened.
Because that anonymous person is totally trustworthy.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that's so sad right now is that basically, scientists, engineers, medical people with years and years of training and education and experience, they're those suspect ones, but some random dipshit in his basement in his underwear, he's the one that, that he knows all the secret
He
information.
knows the real truth, Joe. How can you talk bad about him?
And what gets me is like, when they have
You're nasty. I don't like your nasty comments. Why are you such a nasty person?
I am so nasty.
Boy.
That reminds me, that whole paradigm reminds me of like the B movie from the 1950s. I'm pretty sure it's called Invaders from Mars. And basically, I think it takes place in some Midwestern town. And a spaceship comes down from obviously the sky, and it's like it buries itself, I think, behind his farm boy's house. And he goes and reports the fact that there's been an alien invasion. He's 8 years old, and the whole town, all the cops, everybody believes him. And they mobilize the whole army to come and take out the Martians. And it turns out, of course, the kid was telling the truth because, white Midwestern boys always tell the truth.
Always.
Yeah, I mean that's what gets me. These people that claim that they know the secret truth, and you look at like what resources they have to actually discover any of this stuff, and like you're some guy who knows no contacts, has no financial resources or educational resources whatsoever, but somehow you figured it all out and you got all the information. It's like the Nibiru people.
Truth is not discovered, Joe. It's bestowed.
No, truth exists. Lies are invented.
Who's that from?
Good one.
I don't know, but it is a quote. I didn't bother to look it up, but it is. It's kind of a good one, I guess, if you believe in what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with an O. Not subjective, objective truth. But that's a whole different philosophical discussion in the existence of objective truth.
Yeah, you can't disagree with it at all. It's just not possible because it's objective.
Well, one thing that gets me the most about these
it's objective that you can disagree with. It's subjective that you can't disagree with. I mean, I guess you can disagree with all of them, but one of them is easier to actually foundationally disagree with than the other.
Well, what's always find funny is I've been in discussions with people on the internet, and this is it's always fraught with danger, right? But not with Sister Danger. But
the internet should be.
That's right. The thing is, like, I've posted something that was completely subjective. I acknowledge that this is my completely subjective opinion, and people are like, "You're wrong." No, I can't possibly be wrong. If I'm giving a subjective opinion and I acknowledge that it's subjective, that I'm not in any way saying that this is some objective truth. It's just my subjective opinion. I can't be wrong. It's literally, in fact, it's objectively true that it's my subjective opinion.
I don't think you know what those words mean, and you're fired from being able to use them. That's actually kind of an interesting thing that brought up in my mind, which is oftentimes I wonder about the whole premise of the notion that people should have to demonstrate some level of basic civic understanding before they can vote, which is how the Romans did it. And maybe the Roman Empire fell, but it took it like what 1,000 years or something or more to do so.
All empires fall.
I mean, that's true. Like all empires are going to eventually fall. I'm just saying, how long have we been a country? I don't know. I mean, Rome might have fallen, but it didn't happen for a really long time. Maybe we should consider some of what they were doing back then. I don't know.
And I would say that they fell because the barbarians at the gate were already inside the gate, and I kind of feel that that's the case for us already too.
Yeah.
I think the United States is modeled on the Roman example to a pretty high degree, in terms of the stratification of society and everything,
Republic and all of that.
Our the American 20th century, we were officially not an imperialist power, officially, even though we have military bases in like 150 countries or whatever,
Well, I don't want to sound like the woke dude, but
But
there's a reason why we don't have poll taxes or poll tests.
oh, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh. No. I agree. I agree that there is no good way to actually oversee that kind of a thing, and therefore, it is best that all people are allowed to vote on all things, if they're subject to that particular society. I do agree with that. Like that's my actual belief, but I am a fan of like thinking about lots of different things. Just because I think about them doesn't mean I adopt them, and that's something that I actually have thought about often, because you like look at some of this stuff and you're like, wow, those people vote. And and I think about like that right, like just what's wrapped up in the comment, those people vote, right? And then I wonder, is there but I'm one of those people too, because the very premise of having representatives is that not every single person in the world has the bandwidth to literally be fully educated on every topic that could possibly be out there, from your local level all the way up to the White House, to Congress, right? You just can't. Nobody can know all of that. You have.
Well, that's why presidents and stuff have advisors, because
that's
no
why
one can
experts exist,
know
right?
all. Yeah,
right. And so I find myself challenging the notion that everyone should be able to vote in my own head, sometimes with the notion of maybe I shouldn't be voting on this topic because I don't actually know anything about salmon and the streams and Native American law and the state of Washington and our environment. Not my area of expertise by a long, long way, right? Know very little about it. Why am I voting on environmental issues? Should that not be left to people with demonstrated knowledge and expertise, or at least some basic knowledge in?
I think the people actually implementing the policies should definitely have that expertise, or at least have that expertise available to them. And as far as what you're talking about becoming knowledgeable, I mean, that.
Okay.
That is our own fault. I mean, if there's an issue that comes up that you don't know anything about, I suppose you can just vote your party line and hope for the best or whatever,
Right.
But at the end of the day, like
most people
the very first time I voted, I was kind of blown away by how many spending proposals I had to vote on, and so I didn't know at the time. That was 1980. It was like, do you think the state should spend $500 million improving the roads? Well, in 1980, California was 49th in terms of road quality in the country, so it's pretty bad. So I didn't know if $500 million was a lot, enough for the roads. I didn't know if it was enough for the roads, but I know that was the only offer we were getting, was $500 million or nothing. So I'm going to vote for it. Now to me, that's kind of like an uneducated mindset, but I was only 18 at the time. And like I say, I didn't take the time to educate myself about those issues. I didn't really realize I thought I was just going to vote for people. I didn't realize about all the other stuff that comes on a ballot in California, or all ballots, you know.
I think we have, like, in our country, especially because of the way our system is set up, we have an issue where we've gotten to a point, as far as like progress in technology and science, that like 200 years ago, if a community wanted to build a community center, um, they could vote on it and it's no big deal. It didn't matter. There were no real impacts to anything else around them. Now you could build something 100 miles in and find out a year later what you just built just wiped out an entire population of indigenous seals.
Right.
You know, I mean, so we've reached a point where our decisions are beyond our capacity to really think about them as a population and as individuals, that we can't vote on those things as far as the general population. We don't have the education to do it.
Sure.
The other thing too, here that's the thing. And for that reason, on the one hand, the people who kind of vote like robotically, I get that, because like you said, we're busy. There's too many topics. The best you can do is try to find somebody that you think is trustworthy, that's kind of tell you, and then you try to go along with that. But what I get the most upset about, there are a lot of people that fancy themselves activists who don't even have fundamental understanding of the things they're being activists about. And that's what drives me nuts. It's like, nothing about this topic, but you're really passionate about it. Like, how? Where's that? And I've said before, that's why my arguments with Kate is like, my arguments with Kate are not over policy, because we have some differences, but like there's very little of Kate's policy that I would get really angry about if they were implemented. We have some lines, different lines, but I find, her understanding of the fundamentally, how the government functions, and as a process and how things get done, that she doesn't seem to understand that, and that's where my frustrations always come, because she's like, well, let's do this. Like, no, it's literally, you couldn't actually do it that way, even if everybody agreed, because the system is not built to do that, and you couldn't even change it to do that, because as a practical matter, like I said before, like changing healthcare, I'm totally with her on let's have a single payer. But the way she wants to implement it is literally impossible from practical, pragmatic perspective. But people they have these strong opinions, and they don't understand the function. And so me as an engineer, I'm all about the function. I don't care about the I'm the function way over form. And so I do get into the nitty gritty and how if I can, if it's not beyond me. And when it is, I try not to be too passionate about those topics, because what the fuck do I know? One thing, real quick, about what we were talking about objective. When I had an interaction with Cy-Ten Bruggencate a number of years ago.
Oh my God. You've talked to that? Oh my God, I hate that guy so
bad. So I actually got him off script twice, which was fun, because he shuts up because he didn't know what to do. So he resets himself and tries to get back on the script.
Oh, God.
But one of the things was I said that because he tried to do the "how you know what you know" kind of thing.
Do you have PTSD from that? Because I think I'm
probably. But one thing where I kind of ran him down was that about objectively know something. I said there is at least one thing I can say I know objectively true with absolute certainty, and that's that I don't know everything.
All I know is that I know nothing.
He goes, well, how can you prove how can you prove that you don't know everything? I'm like, well, because I know I don't. Because if I either know everything or I don't. I either know that I know everything or I don't know it. So if you do your little box thing, if it's possible for me to know everything but not know it, not know that I know everything, it's possible. There's possible for me to know everything and know it. It's possible for me to not know everything and think I do, and then not know everything and know that. So basically, knowing, if I knew everything, it's not possible to know everything and think that you don't.
I mean, I'd just like to, at this point, like slap you with the fish of solipsism, but
Yeah, it was great. I was just happy though because this actually got him to shut up.
I was going to do the same thing. I was going to say, prove this. Prove you exist. You can go down that rabbit hole for fucking weeks in meditation.
And the thing is, I hate solipsism, but it was a useful tool of getting him to shut the hell up.
you hate solipsism, but Daniel Dennett has written some really great things on it. like his failure to disprove that entire philosophy, pretty good.
Well, right, because the thing is, you can't.
And I like Daniel Dennett.
Well, that's the thing. You can't prove that you're not the only being in existence. But my thing was, if I am, then obviously everything else there is an illusion that my mind's created. But I still have to deal with it. And if it's not, then I said to somebody who told me they were a solipsist, and I said, okay, well, if you think that I don't really exist, that you're the only mind, and I'm just a figment of your imagination, then you're literally wasting your time having a conversation with yourself. And he shut up too. That was great. I loved it.
I think. Sorry, Rob. I just want to say real quick. I mean, Hindu literature, Hindu scripture has an awful lot to say on this subject. An awful lot. Go ahead.
No, one of the things I used to say when he would do the whole a square circle. What do you call a square circle? I would just say, "What are you talking about? That's a triangle." Just
Squaring the circle.
Ways. That's not a square circle. It's not a circle. It's not even. It's a triangle. So, just throw more bullshit at him.
So I sort of perceive the conclusions. I mean, I don't even know how we got on. This is my fault, isn't it? I brought up the word solipsism. Fuck. Oh, it's all my fault. I mean, ultimately, I perceive, at least at this point in the course of humanity, the relative ends, the relative conclusions that one must come to in both nihilism and solipsism as roughly the same. It is irrelevant since we do not have any ability to determine the realness of our existence. Then the only thing that really matters is what we perceive as the realness of our existence, and then go forth from there. So, like all the rest of it is sort of philosophical until science has reached a point that we can somehow determine something different. So
sure, I know a good joke about it. Let me see if I can get it right. It goes something like, I believe solipsism is the correct philosophical point of view, or is it just me?
Oh my god, that's
good.
I have to pass that on to some people.
Stealing that.
And I always find it like I think it's one of those things where it's a kind of something that probably everybody should look at once and try to understand in their life once, just from the perspective of like trying to understand how do we know what we know and all that. But
as long as when they do it, they're not suicidal at the time.
Well, right.
Good point.
But as a practical matter, it's like the people who basically you do that conversation with yourself once or with somebody else who understands it, and that's all you need. Beyond that is it's such a waste of time.
Rob, think about everything that's happened in your life in the last 10 years, all the great things that have happened, all the great adventures you've been on, and realize that every one of those days, Saiten Bruggencate has been using the same script on somebody's YouTube channel, and another YouTuber has fallen prey to the dull, boring, droning voice of Saiten Bruggencate sucking the life out of them while you were eating a pizza.
Yep.
It sounds like you won that.
Hey, can see? I want to. There's a recent YouTube thing that you might be aware of or might not. I don't know. But recently, Jenna Marbles has decided to dial her channel back down to basically stop making videos for a while because she has basically been canceled for videos that she made like 8-10 years ago. And even though she already took those videos down and already made videos talking about how she's grown since then and blah, 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 she feels that very strongly. She doesn't want to hurt people. And so she's going to take it back. And Jenna Marbles has 20 million subscribers.
I didn't
I
know
thought
she was
you were
still
going to
making
say
videos.
videos, and I was like,
yeah.
Imagine stepping off of that platform just because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. I mean, I think she's coming from a good place, and I've watched Shadow Marbles off and on for a long time. And, she seems pretty intellectually honest, and she's less full of shit than most YouTubers I can think of. And especially, she is definitely less full
"Ah,
of shit
thanks,
than any
jerk."
YouTuber that I can think of with that many subscribers.
He said most. He said most.
Yeah. But
No, I had no
seriously.
idea she was still making videos.
Oh yeah. But they're not like they used to be. They're much more down to earth, frankly, than they ever used to be.
A lot more of her dogs.
Yeah.
I don't know who that person is.
I actually don't know who it is either.
Oh right. Okay. Well,
Jenna
I mean,
Marbles, like the first video I saw was her showing how makeup could take somebody who looked like she does without makeup and turn them into a bombshell.
yeah.
That was like her first big video, was just like how to apply your makeup. And it was just, she was like the first makeup guru, but it was a joke video.
It was a joke video,
the
and
whole
that video
was
when
a joke.
I saw that video, it had 16 million views, and that was 10 years ago. I don't even know how many views it has now.
Maybe I do know who you're talking about. I would have to, but didn't pay attention to the name. But it sounds familiar what you're describing, though.
Basically, Sister Danger, she's been canceled by the internet mob, as it were, for things that she said a long time ago, which she's already subsequently apologized for years ago. She's apologized for these things years ago and taken the videos down, and whatever. And she's grown a lot as a person. I mean, you especially if you've watched her this whole time, you can see she's grown a lot. And she was already a PhD or whatever. I'm not sure if it's a PhD, but I know she had a degree. I think in psychology or something like that. So she's a pretty smart person, really. And yeah, she I think kind of acts that video that Michael just mentioned accidentally got mega. And I think when I first subscribed to her, she had 3 million subscribers, and like 4 months later, she had 11 million subscribers. So her channel just went whir like that, And she was one of the first people that I was aware of who was making like serious money on YouTube. I mean, and she made all her videos herself, which that must be a pretty high profit margin then,
We all say.
I just feel it's I'm kind of uncomfortable. I mean, everybody has the right to grow as a person, and if you have grown as a person and you've demonstrated that growth as part of your overall presentation of yourself on a platform like YouTube, I don't think you should necessarily be held accountable for what you said back then, since you've shown that you've grown and you've talked about it and you've deleted those videos. I just think it's so unnecessary. She's obviously doing it for her own personal reasons. Maybe she's just too tired of the bullshit. I mean, even small channels get too tired of the bullshit on YouTube.
Yeah,
I don't know how bad it is for 20 million subscribers.
It's a repeated complaint of mine over the years. I've said this many times over the years, that the YouTuberverse doesn't allow for personal growth.
Oh, it is not YouTube. This is society. It is on every single social platform that there is, and it is prevalent amongst people. And I actually very much agree with you, Goth at Funk, and I am hard pressed. Like, a person must have committed, at least for me personally, very egregious crimes that makes me hard pressed to not do my best to forgive them their wrongs once they have done their penance. Because part of the purpose of having a system that we have, having laws, having punishments, and other such things, is that once somebody has, if they've done the time and they've done the crime, they did their time, that when they come out, that they are forgiven. That is the reason that we punish people,
Right.
or supposedly, so that they will learn their lesson and improve or fix or do whatever, change their behavior, and then be still integrated productively as part of society. And disallowing that to happen is basically our own downward spiral, because we then make it so that it continues to happen, is recurring, and there's a recidivism rate that is extremely high because there is no other option.
Right. It just incentivizes improvement.
Yes,
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Because why are you going to leave the safety of whatever position you were in before if you move and then you're just going to be hated when you get there?
yes.
Um,
So
and
You feel hopeless, and you revert to doing the only thing that you know how to do, and that is how you will survive. Because all people try to survive, and if that is how you have learned to survive, and you are left with no other way to survive, or at least no other way that you perceive you have, that is what you will go back to. And I very much agree. Like anybody that wants to just like lambaste somebody, especially like I really super hate it when you see on Twitter like, this guy did this thing from like 15 years ago and screw that guy. Burn down the house. Like for real. Folks, do you honestly legitimately think that your house is without any glass that stones could be thrown at? Because I promise you through the okay, most of you, because there's always some asshat out there that's just gonna be in that like little sliver of 1%ers or something. There's all I'm just saying, because most people grow and mature, and some things cannot be learned except for by living life. They just they simply can't be. You can understand them conceptually, but you cannot internalize them except through your own life and experience, right? And that just takes time. And this is why we call it maturing, right? So
Personal growth on social media, personal growth is either completely ignored, like it never happened,
yes,
or treated as if you're a traitor, like it's some kind of
yes, you discourage. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, well, I think, for instance, like, okay, if you remember James Gunn, look, was it 10, 12 years ago? He said some, some really not good things. Now, okay,
and I promise you that was me, like maybe not 10 years ago, but more like 20 years ago or something, like 15, 20. That was me too. Like I used to make the most horrible jokes, and it wasn't just me that thought they were funny. All of the people I was hanging out with thought it was funny. That is how we drank. That's how we partied. That's how we did everything. And then I grew out of being, 25 years old and got life experience and more knowledge about other people. And I was like, ooh, I was sort of shitty back when I was 25 years,
That's what I'm
like,
so the thing is that, it's one thing if I guess he never was held accountable for it at all. But the thing was, he had been already.
yes.
So that was the thing that got me. It's like, well, yeah, we already had this conversation. He already was dragged. He already had to deal with the flack, and he did change. And you're right. Now, look, somebody mentioned.
See, that's the key, though. Did the people do the change?
And that's why
actions and words must align. Otherwise, your words are meaningless.
Right. That's why when people bring up Ricky Gervais, I'm like, fuck Ricky Gervais, because you know what? Ricky Gervais didn't change.
I don't even know who that guy is.
He's a British asshole. He's a douchebag. Fuck him. So the thing is, and he's like, oh, people you're still an asshole, Ricky. You continue to do this shit, and then then you're like, oh, well, everyone's canceling everything. And of course, he's not canceling. He gets millions of dollars. But the thing is that really what comes down to is has there been change? Accountability. Has there been change? And so if somebody has, I make the point too. Like I was not always in favor of gay marriage. I didn't support marriage equality. I was wrong, and I changed. So I'd actually used it. Somebody was giving me, it was some trans issue and they were dragging somebody. And I'm like, yeah, they said that thing again a long time ago. And if they never changed their position, I'd be right with you. But they did. And you know what? I was, like you said, I was where they were at one point, maybe not as bad as them, but I was over there. And I was certainly over there with gay rights issues. So you know what? Now I'm not. So if you want, I said, you want to throw away them, throw me away too, because I used to be there. So if you want to throw me away, go right ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So in Jenna Marbles' defense, there's this expansion of what blackface means.
Yes, 100%.
It's not just like the cartoonish white lips and blackface that looks like minstrel work.
Right.
Yeah,
now it's any changing of your skin color to fit a different character. And what Jenna Marbles did,
a drow elf in D&D,
yeah.
You better figure out a different way to do it. I don't know, maybe a black line across your eyes or something, but do not go full blackface because your drow elf is racist.
I'm totally into the cosplay community. I love going to Denver's Comic-Con and I see this all the time.
Holy crap,
Where
is that where
people-
you live? I mean, not to call you out or anything, but that means like you and Goth are going to be super close. Not to call you out, Goth, but I mean, as long as we're calling people out.
We
And you
figured
guys
this
are
out.
close to me. I'm like, I can literally drive out towards you guys and go to Ren Fair out there. How exciting! And then I could meet you in person. It'd be
Yes.
great.
That'd be cool.
Anyway, back to your point.
Okay, so
She's excited.
the definition is expanded, and now looking back at her work 10 years ago, she was wearing something like a spray tan to be the color of Nicki Minaj. This spray tan was actually her look for a while. She
Right.
was tanned. Like she was not white, she was that tint of Nicki Minaj tan for a while, just being herself. But because she spray tanned herself to look like Nicki Minaj in that video, that's blackface when she was specifically playing Nicki Minaj to do a rap song.
Oh wait,
And
that does not make sense. That's ridiculous.
well, and that's the other thing.
But see, it's not up to me. The
I mean, like, the
population
hell
at
is it,
large has yeah. The population at large has expanded the definition
Yeah,
of
they
blackface
Well,
to
and-
any change of tint, right? So this week we've got 30 Rock. Tina Fey pulls 4 episodes out of her own show because looking back on it, she had some people doing, changing the color of their skin for a role. And then we've got people attacking Jimmy Kimmel for playing Karl Malone on The Man Show.
Jimmy Kimmel is one of the most like leftist.
Yes.
Like what?
So Jimmy Kimmel put on like a bald cap and had his like skin tone like the whole body changed, but he was specifically playing Karl Malone with like he could do an impression really good, right? And we've had people attacking Robert Downey Jr. for a role.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Well,
Yeah.
the funny thing about that, though, is the whole point of that role in Tropic Thunder was to get at the. So it was actually attacking when movies would do that. So it attacked it by doing it. So I didn't get upset by Robert Downey Jr. because that was the whole fucking point of the character.
Oh my god! Did they watch that movie? Is that the movie that people are actually attacking?
Yes.
Tropic Thunder is like literally one of my. I own very few movies, and that is one of the ones I own. It is brilliant. Like you
It's
have to watch
hilarious.
it and then watch it and then watch it, and every single time, if you know anything about the industry, you're like, oh my god, how did I miss that joke? How? But that isn't one of the subtle jokes. Like
So it's
I mean, you're a white man playing a black man, playing the dudes. You're a white dude playing a black dude. The dudes are emerging. I mean, what?
I'm the dude just play the dude that's another dude.
How is he's literally on their side in that argument?
Oh yeah,
That's the whole point of that character.
I mean, that's the thing, and that's why I do think there is a difference too between, even when it comes to accents, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. There's a difference between miming a generic accent, where then I could see that, dismissive, versus if you're mimicking a specific person. Like that, and I'll use the example again I used a couple weeks ago when Senator D'Amato made fun of Lance Ito, Judge Lance Ito, and he used that horrible, shitty Charlie Chaplin accent. When Lance Ito is was born in California and sounds like a surfer dude. He doesn't have a Japanese or any Asian accent whatsoever. So you do a fake Asian accent, yeah, it's fucking insulting, because you're basically trying to denigrate him and dismiss him. But the thing is, yeah, if you're mimicking a specific person and you're doing the way they actually talk or parody of how they talk,
There's a difference.
I don't see that as the same. Plus, like one example of would be definitely considered blackface today, but I thought was brilliant was and on Louis C.K. That show Louis, Louis C.K.'s last show that he had. He was taking the kids trick or treating, and the old elder daughter dressed up as Frederick Douglass with the complete brown skin and the hair, and really looked the part. And the thing is, I loved it because basically, obviously, everyone gets uncomfortable, and sometimes I like it when white people get uncomfortable. I have to admit, but the thing is that of course it's a child. This child doesn't have any of the politics or any of the things like that. The child
don't have greater context.
I admire Frederick Douglass, and she had a suit on and the whole 9 yards. She looked exactly like a painting of Frederick Douglass. So a child wouldn't understand any of the things behind it. So the child was innocent, but your gut reaction is to go, oh, but you're like, oh, why am I doing that now?
Mhm.
You know, and there is a difference.
I'll tell you a true story that you might find amusing. About 5 or 6 years ago, I went to a Halloween party dressed up as a black pimp, right? And a couple weeks later, I went out for dinner with my daughter, and she said, "What were you for Halloween?" And I said, "I was a black pimp." And she's like, "Oh my God, Dad, you didn't put on blackface, did you?" And I'm like, "No, of course not. That would be racist." I was obviously a white guy, but I went out as a black pimp. And I don't see a problem with that. You know?
So this last 2-3 weeks has been so Overton window pulling that not only can you not change the tint of your skin without being it called blackface, but now white people who voice black characters in cartoons are stepping down so that black people can have those roles, so Asian people can have those roles.
Well, that happened with
Now
the Indian guy on Simpsons, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Apu is now being recast.
Apu. Is this Aladdin?
The Simpsons.
Who's
I mean,
Apu?
He's the guy who's in the corner store.
Yeah. He's the Indian guy who owns the Quickie Mart.
In what? The Simpsons? Like,
The Simpsons,
hey,
yeah.
Simpsons, God in my
Simpsons.
religion, but okay, that guy.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the thing that's funny to me about
You just did Indian voice.
well, the thing. here's the
No,
funny thing.
I did a poo voice.
Cancel
There's the
Sister
difference.
Nature. Where's my hashtag to cancel Sister
See,
Nature?
here's the funny thing though. Like, and look, I get that Indian people didn't. Not all people, Indian people disliked it. Some did. So look, I don't have I didn't have a problem with him stepping down with it. But the funny thing for me though, and again, because it is more of a generic accent, like he's not imitating a certain person. However, living in New Jersey and there's a large East Indian population very close to where I live, I know lots of people who sound exactly like that.
Sure.
I mean, like, literally, if you're a white person who's never been to India, doesn't speak any of the dialects of that language, therefore can't differentiate between, say, like the Southern accent, the Boston accent, the Californian accent, and the Texan accent, right? Like, you can't distinguish between their regional dialects. That's literally like everybody ever with concern to somebody outside of their area where they live. I mean, if I go to France, they can't tell that I'm an American or a Canadian, even though Canadians definitely have an accent. They can't tell the difference, right? It's all just English to them. Like,
I
what the heck?
sometimes get that.
Like,
I sometimes get that here in the UK. People ask me if I'm Canadian or American, but the reason they do that is because they don't want to offend me.
It's because you didn't say
if you ask a Canadian if they're American, a Canadian will get offended. So you ask both.
Yeah.
Canadians get really pissed off if you ask them if they're American. Apparently.
Actually, I mean, I can see not wanting to be compared to Americans. I can see that. Sadly, I can.
After living in Buffalo and spending a lot of time in Canada, I don't know that I want to get called.
But like the notion that they all sound the same, like all Indian accents sound the same, because we're not from there. Just like all like white English accents sound the same. If you're not, I mean, I literally live 2.5 hours from the border of Canada. I've been to Canada, and I still, like, if somebody's been here for a little bit, you really have to listen to what they're saying to be like, hey, wait a minute, are you Canadian? Unless they're from like deep Canada or something. But if they're from Vancouver or Victoria or something like that, you can't tell unless you really get talking to them. So if you don't even speak that language, the chances that you can tell are super, super thin. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just trying to say that it makes sense that there's a general demographic identifier, right?
I'll tell you something that really fascinates me, right? Is America, obviously we do have lots of different accents. You've got several different, you've got like the Texas accent slightly different to other Southern accents, for example. And other Western style accents as well. You've got I would call what you call maybe a Pacific Coast accent, because it's not all the same along the Pacific Coast, but it's quite similar. And the East Coast has several different accents. Like when my sister lived in Virginia Beach, she adopted a Virginia accent, which I didn't even know was a thing until she came back from Virginia Beach. But when I come to the UK, right, the UK geographically is about the same size as California. All right.
Or Washington and Oregon together.
I'm not exaggerating. If you cross 4 or 5 hills, the accent is slightly different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no, for sure.
What amazes me is it was now it would have been considered like Greater Lancashire, because like Lancashire has been split up somewhat, so Greater Manchester is its own county now. But back in the if you look in the historical Lancashire County, so you have Liverpool, Lancaster,
And Manchester.
Manchester, and Bolton, and all 4 accents are completely different.
Yeah. And I think the 2 of them are right across from each other, aren't they, on the river?
Oh yeah.
It doesn't surprise me though, because
Bolton is 10 miles from Manchester.
Like New York has its own accent, and it's just a city.
It's got about 12 different accents, doesn't it, New York?
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, you have Boston. There's the Boston accent that is pretty specific to the city of Boston. Once you get out into the burbs, it changes a bit, not as harsh. Philadelphia has its own accent. So I mean, yeah, for an small space, that's not that surprising.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, the thing is, in London, there's literally certain different neighborhoods of London, and then it's like even in the East End, there's the Western East End and there's the Eastern East End.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, London. I wouldn't even like to count how many different accents there is just in London, because like just take Black Londoners, right? There must be 3 or 4 or 5 that I personally have been acquainted with who have completely different accents, because you've got people who are descended from West Indians, people who might be descended from West Indians, but it's been so long ago that they don't have any trace of it left in their accent. You got people who've descended from Africa, who've immigrated from descendants, and then you've got people who've also come from Africa, and they've got a different English accent again. Then you got the Jamaican accent, which is a completely different West Indian accent to the other West Indian accent. About it never ends.
No, you know what you know what I want to know, right? Like, so we're sitting here from the perspective that we're all talking, right? It seems like maybe we are the ones making fun of other accents that are non-English accents, and not by English I mean English speaking as opposed to English British, right? And so what I want to know is, because definitely between American English and British English, there's 100% an accent difference, right? What I want to know is, I want to know what the secret backstage conversations between actors like Hugh Laurie, who can do an American English accent, Ian McShane, who can do an American English accent, whoever the dude is that plays Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead, super American English. And I want to know what their backstage conversations are making fun of American English accents, because they've got to have them. They've got to.
What's his name? He's an awesome actor, and I'm drawing a blank. He played Oswald in the JFK movie.
Gary Coleman.
Gary Oldman.
Oh
yeah.
It was great. Years before I even knew he was British, because the first several movies I saw him in, he was doing one variety of American accent or another. He can do multiple American accents faithfully.
Yeah. And then that's how it was with Ian McShane too, because Deadwood. And then I was like, wait, what? That guy is what? He's actually
in an interview, and I was like, holy shit, he's British. Where the hell that come from?
The funny thing is that they can do like British people and Australians and New Zealanders, they can do our accent. And actually, I guess I should not limit that, because we still have like Scotland and Ireland up there too. And they bring us the people that die in every movie. What's his name? Sean. That's right. He's dead to me. I don't remember. But it's like everybody else can do American English accents, and we can do nobody's accent. Have you
I was watching TV. Actually, I was just letting it play. So I'll do that sometimes. I'm on the computer, and I'll just let the TV, whatever comes on. And Red Dawn came on. Not the original Red Dawn, the remake. And Chris Hemsworth. It took place in Washington.
Isn't the original one with Sean Connery?
No, the original one was Patrick Swayze.
I'm thinking October.
You're thinking
Red October.
Red Dawn. Okay.
There's a Russian with the Scottish accent.
Yeah. Well, no, Chris Hemsworth supposedly playing a guy from Washington State, a Marine, who's got his whole family all has very American accents, and he could not hide his Australian accent at all. Everything he said just sounded so ridiculous because it was so out of place. It was just like, oh my God, why did they hire this?
Yeah,
He's
why did they hire him if he can't do it?
good looking.
Oops.
Yeah.
That's my default.
I mean, I'm as not gay as they come, and even I look at Chris Evans, I'm like, maybe.
You know, I mean, he's got those
It's
blue eyes.
Hollywood. Everybody's a little bit gay once in a while.
Yeah. Him and Idris Elba. Idris Elba is just like, I mean, the thing about in the Thor movies, the two of them are there together. I'm like, you know, I gotta start rethinking of this totally straight thing. You know?
And I'm watching, and I'm just like, why is this one guy in this family Australian?
Yeah.
So, wait, okay, so hold on. Chris Hemsworth is the one we're talking about, and he's Australian.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, to some degree, I super live under a pop culture rock. It is no doubt true. Like, I know weird things, and then I completely don't even know, like, very modern, like, and I mean, Chris Hemsworth, like, good-looking Thor. He's Thor, right? Like, yeah, but like, I am not that. I don't know. Like, I don't like big huge dudes. I don't like big dudes, like big huge dudes that are like to begin with, except for one, and that is The Rock. The Rock is my one big huge dude that I like. So
he's pretty cool.
Sister Danger, how many years of immersion in an accent do you think it takes to pick it up?
This is a difficult question to answer because I don't think it's necessarily based on time so much as I think it's based on how people learn. For example, myself, and I'm just going to use myself for an example because it's basically the easiest thing and most knowledgeable thing I can speak on. But
and you're you.
What?
And you're you.
And I'm me, right? So. But for example, I am a person who learns primarily audioly. So I have great skill at like absorbing what I hear and compared to other people. And this manifests itself in weird ways. Like I memorize the lyrics to like fucking everything and quotes and movies and soundtracks and all kinds of stuff, like inadvertently. I don't even... the level of effort that I have to put into it is nil. it's not a lot. Well, depending on the complication of what it is I'm listening to, but listening and hearing is how I primarily learn. I know from literal direct experience that if you take me out of first of all, I don't even sound like I'm from Washington, and that's a whole different story that I can get into. But I know that I don't sound like I'm from Washington. I also know that if you take me out of Washington and you put me in Texas, it will take me 30 minutes or less to start noticeably adopting their speech patterns. Like take me out of wherever I'm at, put me someplace like you can put me in a Mexican environment, like where they speak Spanish, because I've been down south into South America where they speak Spanish, or into Mexico. I've also been there. Put me into North Carolina. I've been there. All of these places, France, also there as well. Whatever the case, every time I have gone to these places, I, faster than my travel partners or people that I'm there meeting with at some kind of a convention or whatever, noticeably have absorbed whatever their speech patterns are. I studied Russian for several years when I was in college, and my teacher constantly commented on how my Russian sounded better than every other student's Russian whenever we were called upon to read out loud. And I attribute this, though, to the fact that I am an audio learner. So when I hear the thing, I literally attempt to reproduce the thing, because this is how language works. This is how speech works. And if you really want to communicate with the people, you adopt however that sound is, right? And I'm good at doing that. Am I perfect at doing that? No, of course not. But probably better than most. So how long does it take? I don't know, but I definitely think that goth at funk has been in England long enough to have some accent, to have some, like, if you come back to America, guy, and you don't sound, because I've had other friends that have lived in England for at least 10 years, and they do not sound like the regular American anymore. So if you come back to America, buddy, and you don't have some weird, words about you, I'm going to be disappointed.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I got a few things to say. First of all, my sister's like what you just described about yourself, Sister Danger. My sister has moved around. When she was in the Navy back in the day, she lived off the coast of Naples in Italy for a while. But when she came back, she was in Virginia
I love
Beach.
Italy.
It didn't take her a month before she's had a full-on Virginia Beach accent. I mean, it was incredible.
Yep.
And when she lived in Chicago, that was a few years before she joined the Navy, and again she took on a Chicago accent, lickety split. I mean, there was nothing to it. When I was a radio DJ, which I did for quite a long time, because I worked with my voice as that was my instrument. So Michael, my answer to your question is it doesn't take time at all. If you have a talent with your voice, all you have to do is listen to maybe an hour's worth of it, and you can mimic what you're listening.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Having said that, when it comes to acting in particular, I think developing a character and being the same guy every single day would take practice at mimicking the same accent.
Definitely.
You couldn't just do it on the spot and expect it to work. I think they would have to do a lot of rehearsing with their accent.
Well, there are also colloquialisms that go into doing what you're talking about, Goth Art Funk, that I think require kind of being immersed into whatever the area, the culture of the area that you're in is. Like, my mom lives in Maine, and the same thing. If I visit her, and often when I do go visit my mom, it's for a minimum of a week at a time, because why the heck go all the way across the country for 3 days? So I get out there, and by the time I leave, I'm parking the car at Walmart. Like my R's have evaporated. What's that letter in the alphabet? Someone erased it.
I'm the same way, because I lived in Buffalo for a year, and in Buffalo's a wasteland, so I spent a lot of time in Canada. And
Buffalo, New York?
Yeah, Buffalo, New York. And I started dating a woman she was Canadian. She was from Montreal, but she had moved to Ontario. And so she lived in Niagara Falls with one of her brothers, and one of her other brothers lived in the neighborhood. So I'm over to her place a lot and around her and her brothers and her brother's friends. And I started picking up the Southern Ontarian accent with a hint of Quebecois accent, because that's who I was around. And I started even some of the mannerisms, and they started teasing me, because Canadians, the whole thing about saying A at the end of the sentence, they do that a lot, especially in South Ontario. I started doing that, and they teased me mercilessly because
it's so easy to catch on to the A, though.
And then when I was traveling for work, and I was in North Carolina in a 6-month period, I was there for a total of about 4 months, on and off. And I started picking that up, and people, I would call back home, friends and family would notice, and they're like, dude, you've only been there for, a few weeks, and you sound like you're from North Carolina. But then I would get home, and I'd walk in, get to Newark Airport, and I'd walk out, and I'd hear people talk, and my voice, and I immediately reverted back to the way I normally spoke.
Yeah.
My ex-boyfriend, I was with him for 9 years, Puerto Rican. And I learned some Spanish while I was with him. His mom.
Did you say your ex-boyfriend?
Yeah.
Didn't you just have a kid in the background? Is it an adopted child?
No.
Nope.
Oh. Okay. I'm just catching up.
I am the living embodiment of the LGBT flag.
Okay. I have no problem with that. It just caught me off guard, because I literally haven't met you today. So I'm like, oh wait, what? I'm confused. Unconfuse me, please.
Well,
Yay.
9 years I was with him.
No. Unconfusion is not going to happen.
That was wrong.
9 years I was with him. He's Puerto Rican. His mom didn't speak any English, so I had to learn some Spanish. So I did learn Spanish, of some. And anytime I spoke Spanish outside of like the family, anytime I was like out in the world, people would think I was Puerto Rican, because all of my Spanish has a Puerto Rican accent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the Green Machine says that I've got a slight British accent, and whilst I personally don't hear it, I know I do have some British isms.
Yeah.
Whilst I personally don't hear, I'm just gonna let
Well,
you know.
hang on.
Whilst is one of your isms, okay? Whilst.
Fair play, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
saying fair play is another one.
Yes,
But-
it
but,
is.
having said that, though, I didn't really when I was in the '90s, when I first started going home to visit my family, my family used to tease me about this English tinge I had to my accent. And I said, no, I haven't developed that. And then I was in Santa Rosa walking down the street, and a homeless guy asked me for some money. So I gave him $1. I said, here you go. And he said, are you from Australia? And I'm like, okay, my family's not making it up, because if this stranger can hear it in 3 words, then obviously there's something there. You know?
What? Australia's entirely peopled with criminals.
When I was in high school, I had a similar experience as Sister Danger. That beginning of my junior year, I'm in Spanish class, and I took 4 years of Spanish. So beginning of my third year, a week or two into class, my Spanish teacher said, "Do you speak Spanish at home?" And I was like, "Well, what? No, but what made you ask that?" She's like, "Well, because your pronunciation is really excellent." I said, "No." I said, my grandmother knows a few words of Yiddish, but that's about
Yiddish.
Yiddish.
Just listen to Enrique Iglesias, right? Decime. That's all. No.
And yeah, so I like I gotta have a very mixed background.
I watched Dora the Explorer, man. I don't know.
Hey, listen, gang, where I'm at is
Yiddish.
20
Yiddish
past
is
3 in the
nothing like
morning.
Spanish. What?
I want to start winding down, because where I'm at, it's like 20 past 3 in the morning. And last night I only got like an hour and a half of sleep, because as I mentioned before we went on air today, I've been living through an awful lot of personal drama. And yeah, so I haven't been able to. I think in the past 5 weeks, I've got 3 weeks of without sleep. You know, I mean, like literally that many days where I just haven't slept at all. So it's been a rough period, and I'm really sort of angry about it as well, because, you know, with the move coming up and everything, I really want to be able to be more emotionally available to be excited about moving. And I am excited, but I spent so much time depressed as well that it's been really hard to actually experience the excitement more than in my brain. You know what I mean? It's only just been in the past few days that I've actually started to feel the butterflies in my stomach and the genuine tingle of, you know, being with my woman and everything like that. It's going to be great. And I know it's going to be great.
I was wondering actually what it was that was bringing you back to the States, because I don't know.
I kind of accidentally met this person. Like what, 3.5 years ago. And we were just sort of friendly and whatever. But then, you know, yeah, we got closer. And the bottom line is, I just thought, well, I'm not having a long distance relationship, because that's impossible, even though she was quite willing to try that. And I'm like, no, I can't do that, because for me, the whole point of a relationship is you're in someone's life, they're in your life, you know, you're there for each other. That's the whole idea. That's what a relationship is for me. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from anybody else. If anyone, because I used to know lots of Navy wives, and they liked the fact their husband was gone 6 months a year. Right. So like, and whatever.
It doesn't even sound like you, based on my observation of you. You seem like you're very much a caring, like you want the person to be there.
Most of the time I've been on YouTube, I've been single though. And so it's really, really nice for me, because I'm starting a whole new phase of my life. And the thing that's really cool is, I mean, we really, really, really like seriously are into each other. And that's really what's, like I said last week to Rob, that's what I really need. You know, I'm
super congratulations, by the way. I mean, that's.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I feel really good about it. And so there's lots to look forward to. But I'm going to be like jumping into a cold water really, because I'm just not really used to having anyone take care of me. You know, and so. It's a process for someone like me who's been so self-sufficient and prides himself in that, to give that permission, you know, because by giving that permission, you're making yourself vulnerable, which is a good thing, right? Because that is, if it's mutual, then that's a bonding thing. But it's just hard to get used to when you're so used to being on your own. You know what I mean? And it's the same for her. You know, she's been alone for quite a long time as well. We're the same age. And, you know, she's been through, I mean, when I talk about the ups and downs in my life, you know, I talk about the downs in my life, and compared to hers, they're they're dips and speed bumps, you know, whereas Jesus Christ, I mean, compared to the things that she's been through, it just blows me away. So and the thing is, she's been alone for so long, and we're both at that point. After you get 50, if you're single, see, most people when you're young, you don't imagine you'll be single at this age. You know, you always think
How
that.
old are you?
I just turned 58 about 2 weeks ago.
50 what?
58.
No, you did not.
Yeah. 58. Yeah, I was born in 1962. No.
No
Well,
way.
anyways, yeah.
I
So,
never imagined that. I mean, I don't want to. I never imagined that. I thought you were a few years older than me. That's.
oh, well, that's
like,
flattering. Thank you.
I'm like, maybe right in
that's
your.
shocking.
Like, if you were 50, between 50 and 52, I would have been like, yeah, that's legit.
Well,
You know.
fair enough. But yeah, but when you get past 50, if you're single, you start to have to reckon with the possibility that maybe you know, because I'm the kind of guy like I don't want to chase women, you know. And you know, once upon a time when I was younger and had that pull, I kind of liked being chased by women. But women my age don't chase; they will not, and that's just a fact. And so I don't care what you got going on. Women my age, you know, they in fact, not just women. When you get past 50, you don't want to budge anymore. You take me. You take me as I am, or you can fuck right off. I'm not budging, and that's where she was when we met. And when we first started getting closer, she said to me, "Listen, you know, she was going to come here like once or twice a year, and we were going to have a little fling or whatever, you know, just like friends with benefits or whatever, I guess you call it." And because she said that's all the time I have for a man in my life, and I'm like, that's cool because I'm not having a long distance relationship. But if you're only going to come here twice a year, you know, we can fool around or not. We'll see when you get here, sort of thing. I wasn't going to commit to it, right?
Yeah.
As we got closer, we really realized how much we had in common and how much we like each other and everything like that, and how groovy we make each other feel. Because like, I'm a big believer.
I love that word, groovy. By the way.
Well, yeah, but I'm a really
word.
big believer in up close, intimate chemistry. Because sometimes you can fancy someone like mad, but if the chemistry's missing, you're doomed.
Yep.
And likewise in reverse, you know, you don't necessarily have to be that physically attracted to someone if they feel like your hand is in a glove when you hug each other, or when you're up together and you just have that warm sort of we're in the same cocoon kind of feeling. You can't buy that. There's nothing, you can't fake that either, you know? And so when I come across good chemistry, I'm slain. That's it. You win, you know? And so that's what happened. You know, we fit like, oh, it's a beautiful thing. And it's something that struck us really pretty hard. So I am really looking forward to it. I'm really excited. But to be honest, if I had a friend who was, say, I don't know, 25 and had spent the same number of hours with this person, and this friend of mine who was 25 was saying they're going to uproot their entire life and move 5,000 miles to be with this person that you've probably spent less than 150 hours with, I'd tell them they were fucking crazy, right? I'd say, what the fuck are you doing? But the thing is, because we are both sort of 58, right? And we've both been through 2 divorces and raised kids and had businesses and all that kind of stuff. And we've had our knocks in life, and we both know, I mean, I'm way past I would never fool around on anybody. I never did anyway. And you know, that's not the type of person she is either. And because I've been cheated on, so I could not be with somebody who I thought I might possibly ever turn into that. I couldn't handle it. Because once upon a time when I was a young man, I was quite like self-secure, but when you get cheated on by 5 women, it kind of takes it out of you, you know? So, but I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, I know it's not.
Sorry those things happen to you. I just want to say that.
It happens to people. It's not
it happens to everybody. No, I mean, surely. I mean, I surely have been, of course, cheated on as well. Nevertheless, I am sorry that those things happen to you because.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the empathy, but I'm no angel, right? I've been on all 3 sides of the infidelity triangle. I cheated on one person once, literally once, and I learned my lesson. I'll never do that again. I've been the guy your boyfriend or your girlfriend is cheating with. I've been that guy, and I've been cheated on. So, and the one that I have the most experience in is being cheated on. You know. My second wife, when we started fooling around, she had a boyfriend she was with for 7 years, and I totally stole her. That's like one of the worst things I've ever done. you know. And the second time I was with I had an affair in 2008. And that cost me a lot. It cost me a lot in money, and it cost me a lot in emotion. I got beat up twice for it and everything, you know. So it was hard for
You
me.
know, it's kind of
It's
weird.
literally the
Your
most
language
immoral
bothers
thing
me.
I've ever done.
Your
Huh?
your language bothers me.
Why? What do you
And
mean?
Because I actually, so I perceive you as a very genuine person. Like, I don't perceive you as any kind of a douchebag. Like, if I did, I literally wouldn't be here. Why would I waste my
Right,
time?
right.
However, I find your language antiquated when you say that I stole her, implying that she did not have a part, even though this is
You're
not what you
totally right.
actually mean. But and it's really weird. I feel very weird saying this because I think that even 2 or 3 years ago, I would not have given a fuck about that language. Like, it would not have
Sure.
been a thing on my radar. And it is only as I have tried to expand my perspective that I find myself going, you know,
I can explain myself really easily.
well,
That
I don't even think
might
you have
actually
to. I
no,
honestly
but
don't even
I
think you
want
have
to
to.
though because
Okay,
there's an
okay.
important reason. Like,
Well,
there's
not to
actually a
me though,
reason I use
because
that word. The
I'm
reason
pretty.
I use that
Okay.
word is because that's what he said to me. You stole my girlfriend. So I was trying to be empathetic to the point that that was the crime according to the guy, right?
I mean, but isn't that a thing though? Isn't that an interesting perspective? I just like,
Well, yeah,
even if
because it implies possession. It implies
yes,
that
it is.
a relationship it isn't a meeting; it's a holding. You know,
And I
I
don't see
personally
you as
want
that
my
person.
relationship
Like,
should be a meeting.
yeah,
You know,
no, that's actually how I see you. Like, at your heart, I do not see you as the possession type of person, and I don't think I ever have. I've always seen you just how you're describing yourself right now, as that, like, it's a meeting. Like, that is how you've always come off to me. So I just want you to know
thank
that I
you.
am literally not. I'm not actually criticizing you. I'm just more like out loud contemplating on the use of words, because you and I, even though you are a little bit older than me than I thought, um, I feel like we're still somewhat in that, both of us, in that time frame of people where we are raised, that I'm like, I actually understand. I can understand those phrases, the usage of those phrases, in a completely different way, because they were different for me too. Like, 10 years
Sure.
ago, those words they would have been totally different. But now I think about them in a different way. And I'm even fascinated myself by that evolution, right? Of thought, because that wasn't even me 10 years ago. I just would not have thought about it in that way. And so, like,
Which
I'm
comes
curious.
down to what we were saying about personal growth earlier and how
Yeah, yeah.
it's a good thing to change and everything and to, you know.
Look at the movies from I mean,
You're
you're only a couple years older than, well, a little bit more than a couple, but you're only a couple years older than me. Look at the movies from our youth. How did a guy woo a girl? Today that would be considered, stalking and
Oh,
Yeah,
harassment.
yeah,
yeah.
the dog
For
is
Out
harassment.
her
sure.
window, out her
Where,
window with the radio.
wear her down until she gives in.
In the movie 10 with Dudley Moore and Bo Derek, Dudley Moore follows her to Mexico on her honeymoon.
Oh yeah.
That's
It-
creepy.
yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why, like, when I look at, my perspective now is that, like, yeah, there's no such thing as actually steal, even though that they may perceive it that way. But it's like, hey, somebody made a choice, and relationships aren't necessarily, just because you're with somebody now, they may change, you may change. Hopefully, you change in ways that still work together, but that may come a time when that's not the case anymore. And so, it's funny when I listen to, like, a lot of cancel, a lot of love songs are very codependent and very possessive, and it's like, yeah. And I listen to, and so some of these some songs I used to love, I'm listening to them now, I'm like, I cringe, because, like, wow, it's so they're insecure, they're very much out of insecurity and possessiveness.
I like to be careful with that kind of stuff, because while I feel that what you're saying does have some truth to it, I also feel that an anachronistic view of history is relevant.
Sure.
That the things that now we might consider to be possessive, previously, and in the context, and I really want to stress the word "and" there. Like if you're a mathematical person and as a conjoiner, right? That those are that the perspective and therefore the meaning of the words societally or even between two people like a marriage, for example, were very different, and that it is hard to understand the meaning of that difference with hindsight, because you weren't living in that life with whatever advantages and disadvantages it came to. Now when we talk about those things though, like you're saying, now I listen to that and I'm like, oh my God. But that is because the whole context of the world has also changed, right? And that maybe in its original context, if you were to live life in that way or experience it, you might actually be grateful for those things, whatever they were. I don't know. I really
but
try to
remember
be.
though, but remember though, a lot of it comes out of a time. We just say we think like the 50s, where they were those things. They were out of insecurity and possessiveness because women didn't fully have rights, and there wasn't, expectation of certain things. It was so there was a kind of a societal acceptance that a husband had a certain rights over his wife's body and things like that.
Sure, but
And
I don't believe that those things were born in a vacuum. To a great degree, I absolutely don't believe those things were born in a vacuum. I believe that all of the things that we understand currently and that we even perceive historically are born of an evolution of society, laws, social
oh
contracts,
yeah,
etc.
that comes from the earlier time when women were actually a material possession.
Sure, but you
So
can
yeah,
continue to go back and you can continue to, you can go back and you could say, yes, women were a material possession. And you can go back before that to the time that women weren't a material possession, but that the marriage between a man and a woman was actually a contract between families, and the importance of progeny and offspring and the rights to procreate with particular people were founded in who is going to be responsible for those people, right?
right.
I
So,
want to point out
but,
that
like
those
life isn't like that anymore, though. So these ways and these outlooks have also become antiquated, right? But they're not born of nothing. And I dislike when they are taken out of their context and then, as we were talking about earlier, reframed and overlapped with something that they are not, to be made
I agree,
different.
but the thing is, though, is you have to be cautious as well, because sometimes we can be too generous. Because even just saying the 1800s, how the birth of the feminist movement, because even women of the time felt that they were being treated badly, and it just took 100 plus 150 years for them to get the political and personal power that they reached, and it's still yet to go. So I can say those are those will definitely explain why things were they were, but we also can't romanticize them too much either.
No, I absolutely agree, and I don't want to sound like I'm doing that by any stretch of the imagination. I like to be careful when I am looking back in time to be sure that I am not, for my own self, for my own edification, if nothing else, that I'm trying to perceive it as whole as possible.
Right. That's why
And not
the guy with the boombox outside the window from the 1984 movie,
Stand by Me.
shouldn't be
Cannot
bashed.
Stand By Me. It's Peter
It shouldn't
Gabriel.
be bashed. It should be looked at for the time that it was in. And at the time, that was romantic. That was, that.
Although even in the time, I remember because before
He was
Bill
Grosse
Maher,
Point Blank. Who is that guy? Fuck, that's a great actor. I love him.
John Cusack.
Yes, thank
Um,
you, John Cusack. That's who it was. Yes, and Peter Gabriel, and yes.
Back I remember even in the early '90s, Bill Maher doing a bit about exactly that. Like even we're talking about contemporary with all these things coming out, with only a few years later, like 3 or 4 years later, saying this is kind of fucked up because basically, you know, all these movies show
In
guys.
your eyes, not Stand By Me. Sorry,
Yeah,
it just
yeah,
finally came to my brain.
Yeah, all these movies are basically telling guys, stalk women and harass them until they give in, and and there was always the scene in the church where the guy would show up and he would disrupt the wedding, and the girl would say, "Oh yeah, you're the one I really love." Which,
I just want to say though, I got to interject, guys, because one thing that really bothers me is like a lot of movies from the '80s, for example, have a lot, like say Porky's. All right, there's a good example. Misogynistic as fuck, right? For sure, even at the time, but it was considered funny, right? Because everybody knew it's deliberately like that on purpose, right? And it's supposed to be in bad taste. Bad taste can be very funny, and this is sometimes the thing that gets lost in the cultural translation over time is at the time it was supposed to be risque in the first place. That was the point. And then so later on, when the morality moves on, it's past risque and now it's canceled, right?
Yes.
I want to tell you a little example. There's a movie that came out, I think, in 1949 called Every Girl Needs a Husband, right? And it's the most blatant example of social engineering or attempt at social engineering I've ever seen from Hollywood. And I think it stars Cary Grant, if memory serves me right. And
I can't even tell you how that title translates in my head, but I'm sure it's not what you're about to describe. I'm like, yes, of course, I need a dishwasher. What are you talking about?
In the movie, Cary Grant plays a doctor who's probably gay, if you ask me, but that's never explicit. But he doesn't want to get married. He wants to be not married, right? And long story short, this girl in the movie wants to marry him, but in the movie, she works at a department store loading line. She works on a conveyor belt or whatever. And so
assembly line.
One day, her boss, who's considerably older, wants to drive her home to the sorority house that she works at, because back in 1949, if you were a single woman, you had to live in a house with other women. Women could not live by themselves in the 40s. Okay. In the 40s, for that matter, you couldn't be alone in a room for more than half an hour with a man without people assuming something went wrong. Or something.
They're just like attributing a lot to the stamina of men.
Anyway, so in this movie, her boss offers to take her home in his car. So she says yes. He takes her home and basically tries to rape her, right? So she punches him in the face. And the next day, he comes in and tells her how lucky she is that he didn't take her to jail for punching him. And she accepts that as, she's lucky he didn't get her arrested for punching him. And he tried to fucking fuck her, right? But this was where it was at. You punched me, and that was really wrong. And I mean, you look at that movie, and so I compare that to like this Boombox with John Cusack. Well, I can't remember the name of that movie, but I mean, or like I don't know, 16 Candles, or other movies that came out in the 80s. There's plenty of movies where there's a lot of misogynistic jokes. Plenty.
Paul, imagine how much faster we could have wrapped this up if you would have just accepted your misogyny instead of all this explanation and apologies and reflections and all this crap. We would have just had fun at you being a misogynist.
That's right. Plus the fact that Sister Danger was telling us what kind of man she didn't like. She never told us what she did like. Now we're out of time.
yeah, that's for sure. And on that note, you've actually really brought me around to a really good place to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody, and especially you, Sister Danger, for coming, because I know you weren't in a very good place when you got here, and I really appreciate you sticking around for this amount of time as well. And like I said, for what it's worth, I've had a rough one, and not just today, but particularly today. And I'll talk about that when we get off the stream real quickly. But anyway, so next week, I'm going to be in my new house in Colorado. I am going to do the podcast, assuming, Michael, that I have fast enough internet. And that's something I'm going to have to find out, because she was saying to me, basically, if it's not fast enough, we're going to improve it, specifically because she knows my podcasts are important to me. Right. So that's pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to getting spoiled as well. It's kind of nice.
You're spoiling, sir.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Exactly. Might I put out there though? I know that I have not made, since the first time we all kind of hop back on, I haven't really made a bunch of them. Please believe that it is just because all the things are so very busy, but I very much appreciate you still trying to hit me up to get me on the show, because when I can, I will be here. And
Well, that's
when
cool.
no, like, please continue to do that. I do love to come on here. And yes, today has been really, really hard. It is still really hard. I've been crying on and off throughout the show. I don't think you guys can see it. You can see me wiping at my face though,
I
but
saw at the beginning. I saw you were struggling with it. Yeah.
yeah, no.
I think as you got into the conversation, it seemed to help you actually. So that's good.
Yes, it is helping me to just talk to friends. That's what's helping.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
Listen,
and-
I also want to thank everybody in the audience for hanging out, and especially I think like most of the people I'm looking at in the sidebar here have been here for like 3.5 hours or more. So
I know.
that's proper dedication. I really appreciate it. Okay, so anyway, until next week, may all your ups and downs be ups, and peace and joy to you all. Stay safe.
Good
We're
night,
gonna end
guys.
the broadcast now.